An honor to co-host this interesting conversation with you, Sanjay ji.
All your initiative.
Thank you, sir. No, we welcome everyone on behalf of Vani and also on behalf of Sanjay ji, because it's a very important conversation to have about the changes in income tax ने क्या-क्या change किए this whole budget. और दूसरी मैं ये भी संजय जी सोच रहा था हम लोग की आजकल जो स्थिति ऐसी हो गई है you know earlier people used to say that if you get sprain and if you put move over it, the move gives you more irritation than the pain itself. So then you become more interested in move and you forget the earlier pain. So that's the situation with our sector. So everything which comes, it gets some more new challenges for the sector. So there is, I think Sanjay ji is the best person who always explains us this situation in a very easy language. और एक आसान भाषा में संजय जी समझाते हैं हम लोगों को कि हमने FCRA के लिए भी इनके साथ बहुत चर्चाएं की है. और जैसा कि आप जानते हैं, the membership of Vani ranges from large organizations to grassroots organizations. And for all of us, nowadays it is very challenges to compliance with all the new laws which are having around. So संजय जी को हमने invite किया है. और जैसा कि मैं कह रहा था कि हम लोग इस स्थिति में हैं सेक्टर के रूप में कि अगर एक कहीं पे कोई तकलीफ होती है तो उसके बाद उससे बड़ी तकलीफ आ जाती है सेक्टर के सामने, तो हम पहले की तकलीफ को भूल जाते हैं और एक तरीके से तकलीफों के बीच में जीना सीख रहे हैं हम लोग. तो संजय जी, हमारा ये एक खुशकिस्मती है कि आप हमारे साथ हैं to advise us, to guide us and how we should move and how we can do a better compliance for all these things. Sanjay ji, please go ahead, all yours, sir.
So thank you so much. And I'm really afraid that I'm not the best person to guide you on this, but nevertheless, you have always been very kind. So I would also like to briefly thank Develop 8 people who are co-hosting this with Vani, and our object, and also my colleague Aditya, who will be moderating the session with regard to questions and answers. Now, with regard to the topics that we have today, so welcome all of you once again. We have overwhelming response, and I think some of you may find it difficult to get it into the session. If that happens, then you will be able to see a recording later on YouTube. So coming to the question of what we are doing today, we are going to be focusing on two things. One is, of course, the changes in the budget, which, there are several changes which affect the sector, which have been proposed. And I will try and take you through those. The second thing, of course, these days, no workshop can be organized without questions about FCRA being raised. So we thought that we will have a small session on that also, particularly FCRA renewals. Okay, so with that, let me try and, get into the main topic itself. Yeah. So what we have today is, of course, you know that a few days ago, the budget was passed. The budget was presented in the parliament just less than 10 days ago. So before I start, there is a statutory caution which Accounted always requests me to emphasize that, Accounted and everyone associated with them is deeply committed to ensuring compliance. And please don't think that anything that we are discussing here is intended to help you bypass the law. The objective is to ensure that you are able to better comply with the law. And, this, I thought it would be very important and relevant here, this difference between prosecution and persecution. So prosecution, of course, is something that is perfectly legitimate and required in any society based on law. But sometimes, prosecution starts feeling like persecution. And I think the NGO sector often, has a feeling these days that they are unable to distinguish between prosecution and persecution. So hopefully by the end of the session, you will get a better idea of what is happening here. and perhaps, feel more confident about dealing with this. So as we've said earlier, this workshop will be in English, both the presentations. But if you ask a question in Hindi, we will respond in Hindi. We will request that we do the questions answers later on, after the presentations are over. And in the meanwhile, let's begin with the session itself. So please keep your mics off. I will request the moderator to please mute everyone so that there is no disturbance. Everyone can hear us clearly. And you can turn on the mic when someone raises a hand and the question is to be answered. So with regard to the changes that we are talking about here today, the three kinds of changes, essentially, a very, very large number of changes actually, but which can be classified into three categories mainly. One is, on monitoring. So how will the Income Tax Department be able to monitor trusts and charities better? The second is, on consistency. So there are two, as the comment says, there are two regimes. One is, 1023C, and the second is 12A. So the government is trying to bring both at par, so to make them both consistent. So there are several changes related to that. And the third is clarity. So there were some points of confusion, which the government has tried to clear up. I must tell you that the more clarity we get in the Income Tax Act, the more confused we become. Today, Income Tax Act, particularly the sections related to charities and trusts, is like a bhool bhulaiya. It's like a maze. And those of you who have seen this movie, Maze Runner, will be amazed at the way at the similarities between the two. Quite often we have a section, then we have a subsection, then we have a clause, then we have a proviso, then we have an explanation, then we have a proviso to an explanation. So in 1023C, for example, there are 20 provisos and numerous explanations. Some of these explanations refer to other explanations. Some of them are applicable only to that section. So in essence, what I'm saying is that we cannot actually probably get a true understanding of what the law means. That I will leave to my more competent colleagues in the accounting and the legal fraternity. I will only offer you a broad understanding of what is being proposed and how it will affect you. So first, let's talk about monitoring. So what are the changes that are being made with regard to monitoring? The first is very basic. All of us maintain books and records. Now the government is going to prescribe what books and records or what books and documents should be maintained. And this will be applicable to all, whether you are registered under 12A or you are registered under 1023C. And of course, if you don't maintain those books or records, then you can lose your exemption. What kind of records could these be? So basic account books, perhaps fixed asset register, maybe investment register, perhaps donor details. So we don't know as yet, and hopefully we will know later on once the rules are notified. The second thing is, a new penalty on unreasonable benefits to trustees. So here, when I say trustees, I of course mean not just the trustees. I also mean what we call key persons. So key persons include senior management like the CEO or maybe the CFO, the founder, the big donors, like any donor who's given more than 50,000 rupees cumulatively is considered a big donor under Income Tax Act, and their relatives. So if any one of these gets an unreasonable benefit in form of salary, excess salary, or maybe enjoying facilities or infrastructure of the trust free of cost, all these are treated as unreasonable benefit. Sometimes loan at a concessional rate can also be treated as unreasonable benefit. That will attract a penalty of 100% in the first year and 200% or 200% in the second or subsequent years. And this penalty will be in addition to another tax, which I'm going to talk about later on. So this is something which is very serious. Now, fortunately, I also want to clarify that there has been a lot of worry about what is reasonable and what is unreasonable, because it is not laid down, it is not specified anywhere. So what I am told is that any, for example, let's say that you appoint a CEO who is drawing a salary of maybe 50 lakh rupees a year. Now, is that reasonable or unreasonable? Someone can say, well, the PM only gets 24 lakh rupees salary a year. So how can we give this person so much? Now, in practice, what happens is that the department will look at whether that person is qualified, and what is the kind of salary or benefits that person was drawing in a previous job. If it is compatible, if it appears that the person has been recruited at close to market rates, then this problem does not arise. Now, that a couple of years ago, or rather last year, this automatic approvals migration to the new system was introduced, and where you file a form online and your tax exemption under the old section is moved to the new section. In this, the government has noticed that there were a number of trusts, and I'm repeatedly using the word trust to clarify that please understand that the Income Tax Act does not deal with NGOs alone. In fact, most of the work most of the problems that Income Tax Department faces are from other trusts who are typically not NGOs. And there is a significant risk that the department sees in terms of misuse of the approval regime. So here, there is a proposal now that if any non-genuine trust gets automatic registration and a violation is noticed, then the commissioner can revoke the approval. This can be done on the basis of a reference from the assessing officer, or it can be done on their own. So what kind of violations might there be? So one is that, for example, if you applied the income or trust property to other objects which are not approved, or in some cases, if you are applying it for only a particular religious community, you are a charitable organization, but you are applying for a religious community, or you are using it for religious activities, then that can also be a violation. Then if you're not keeping separate books, your activities are not genuine. And in addition to that, very important, if the registration conditions which are written in the 12A AB approval are not followed, then that can also trigger this kind of revocation of provisional registration. In addition to all this, there is, I think 3 years ago, this change was made in Section 12A, that if you don't comply with a critical law, which is important for you to, do your work as a charity, then that can trigger a cancellation of your tax exemption. So that is also one of the specified violations. Now, let me move on to the question of bringing consistency between 1023C4 and 12A. Now here, this, like I said, that 1023C4 and 12A have been running as parallel regimes, but these are gradually drawing close together. In fact, even last year, there was hardly any difference between the advantages being enjoyed by the two. Now that difference is going to be almost erased. I don't know why the government is still keeping these two sections. So Form 10, now in case of 12A, if you have, if you make a, so you accumulated some income by filing Form 10, and that income, if there's a default in the accumulation condition, then that income will be taxed in the last year itself. So earlier, this provision was that it will be taxed in the year following the last year. This is being changed. So let's say that you accumulated for 3 years, then earlier it was taxed in the 4th year if not utilized. Now it will be taxed in the 3rd year itself if not utilized. In addition to that, if it is misapplied, disinvested, that means it's not kept in the specified investments, or it is donated or paid to any other organization, then these are, of course, existing provisions for, lapse for default in accumulation conditions.
Sanjay,
Now,
we have a question. Should I put it up now?
sure.
Sudeep Goyalji is asking how the market rates of CEOs would be benchmarked in the NPO sector given the vast range of trusts. Is it linked to the
Jesus.
turnover of the trust?
So, Deepji, there is actually no benchmark, unfortunately. But I think what in practice, what is happening is that the department looks at that particular person. So let's say that you join, you are in the corporate sector or wherever, and you join a trust. Now, in that trust, you are being given a salary of 50 lakh rupees. And your last salary drawn was 20 lakh rupees. Then that would be seen as unreasonable. But it was last salary drawn was, let's say, 40 lakh rupees or maybe, 45 lakh rupees, then there it will not be treated as unreasonable. This is the experience we have.
Okay. But sir, there is an organization like whose the founders are the CEOs, and there is their only job. They are working since last 25 years. Almost all life they are working in that organization. The founder comes CEO. And one thing is it linked to the turnover of that particular NPO?
No, it's not linked to the turnover, because you see, nothing is linked to the turnover, but it is linked to qualifications, experience, and, like I said, last salary drawn. Now, if the person has been working in that particular job all the years, then probably, the existing salary, which has not been questioned in the previous years, will be used to benchmark this.
Okay. Thank you.
So continuing on this, accumulation. So the same provisions of accumulation which are there for 12-way trusts, they are now being brought to 1023C4 also. In the same way that, accumulation will be taxed in the last year if it is misapplied, disinvested, not applied, or donated or paid to any other charity. So now, one special relaxation that is being introduced for 23C4 trusts is that if there is a delay which occurs due to a court order or injunction, for example, there is, let's say that, the funds of the organization are, frozen for some reason, or in the activities that you want to undertake, there is a court order which does not allow you to take that up, then that delay which occurs will be excluded in calculating this period for which the accumulation should have been used. So let's say that there's a delay of 2 years due to a court order, then your original period of accumulation, which was 5 years, can now become 7 years. The second relaxation is that in 1023C4 also, that the assessing officer can now permit repurposing of accumulation. So let's say that you originally wanted to apply money for X purpose, but due to some change in law or due to some other circumstances beyond your control, you are not able to do that. Then, the AO can permit repurposing. So specifically, let's say that, you had set aside money for granting to other NGOs, and now under FC, because of change in FCRA, you can't do that. Then that can be a ground for arguing that, of course, in this particular case, re-granting is not a valid purpose for accumulation. So I think that example doesn't go. But generally, the idea is that if due to changes in law or in circumstances, an original purpose has become impossible, then the AO will permit repurposing. Now, unreasonable benefits, the same provisions, they are being brought to 1023C4 entities also. And an additional change is that now these entities, universities and hospitals, will also have to file tax returns in the same way as 12-way trusts do. And if they don't file tax return, then they will be liable to tax in the same way as 12-way trusts. Another rationalization is that 115TD. You might remember that 115TD was introduced, I think, 5-6 years ago, which said that if an exempt entity converts into a non-exempt entity or loses its tax exemption, then the net market value of assets of that entity will be taxed at highest marginal rate. Currently, that is about 43%. And this tax is in addition to the tax applicable on the income for that year. So this provision was applicable only for 12A cases. Now this is being brought to 1023C4 also. So now let's look briefly at what are the provisions where some clarity has been brought. So one is that, one confusion has been that, for example, let's say that if unreasonable benefit is given to the trustee, then the AO used to deny tax exemption. Now, in this case, the entire income of the entity was sometimes taxed. Similarly, funds are not kept in specified modes, or there's a default in Form 10 conditions. Now, all these cases, the entire income used to be taxed, creating a lot of difficulties. Now, what the government has done is that they've said that it's a clarificatory provision. They've said that only the amount, for example, you should have accumulated only up to 15%, but you have accumulated 20%. So on 5%, the tax will be applied. Similarly, if unreasonable benefit is given, let's say that you have given an unreasonable benefit which is valued at 50 lakh rupees, and your total income is 10 crore. So only on 50 lakh rupees the tax will be applied. So this is a kind of a welcome provision which will help reduce litigation and maybe unfairness of some of these provisions. And on this amount in default, the tax rate is also specified, and that will be 30%. In addition to this, of course, you must remember that this is a special tax. In addition to this, if the net taxable income, after disallowing the amount in default, you find that there is a tax applicable on the net taxable income, then that will also be taxed at the normal slabs. Another clarification is that as of now, there was this confusion that whether NGOs whether trusts and charities should keep their claim expenditure on accrual basis or on payment basis. And in many cases, they were calculating on accrual basis, which is a good basis of accounting. But for income tax purposes, what we've been advocating is that they should use receipts and payments account for calculating the application to avoid any situation where a shortfall in application requires Form 9A or Form 10 and you don't file it. So this is a clarification to now come that application income will not be allowed on accrual basis. It will only be allowed when the payments are actually made. So several friends have asked us that, so should we shift to cash basis accounting? I don't think that is necessary. What you need to do is you need to continue your accrual basis accounting, because accrual basis is very useful for many purposes. But when you are reporting for FCRA or you are reporting for income tax, use the receipts and payments account for calculating your income and application. And this provision again is applicable to both 12A and 1023C trusts. Now remember that this is applicable from financial year 21-22. So this year, which is now coming to end on 31st March, from that year itself, the income will be allowed only on payment basis. So you must keep this in mind that, you must keep this aspect in mind that this year itself, you should ensure that your income meets this requirement. A special provision that has been introduced is where an organization or a religious organization or any entity which has a religious structure receives donations for repair or maintenance of the structure, then in this case, the government has said that this will be treated as a corpus donation, even without a letter from the donor. And this will be applicable to, of course, all religions, whether it's a mosque or a church or a temple or Ram Janmabhoomi or whatever. And this will be applicable from financial year 2021. Now, this is a very important thing. That is why we've highlighted in red that this is actually retrospectively applicable. Now, the conditions for this is that you must apply it only for specific. Now, remember, this is applicable for religious structures only. So this must be applied for specified purposes only. It should not be donated to anyone else. So, for example, you receive it for your own structure and you donate it to another associated trust which holds another, which is managing another temple, then that will not be allowed. The corpus or the fund that you received in this manner should be separately identified, and it should be specified, invested in it. This should be specified modes, so not species mode, specified modes. So which is the same as under section 11.5. If there is a default in this, then in whichever year the default occurs, it will be treated as income and taxed at that 30% rate. Another relaxing provision, helpful provision, is what we call DOE cases, that is denial of exemption. So if there is exemption is denied to a trust, whether 12A or 1023C, then the tax will be applied only on net income, which will be calculated in the same way as profits and gains from business profession, except that some items will not be allowed as a deduction. If any income is spent out of, any money is spent out of corpus, if it is spent out of loan or borrowing, if depreciation has already been, depreciation is being claimed for assets which are already claimed as application. If you made a donation or contribution to anyone else, and any set off of loss, etc., under other provisions. So, subject to these caveats, you will be taxed only on the net income. Again, this is a welcome and relaxing provision, which will help many organizations. Okay, so we are done on the income tax presentation, and I will now take up the other one, which is on FCRA. So before we get into FCRA, any questions on income tax?
Right. So Sanjay ji, we have a couple of questions.
Ji.
Okay, Tirthankar ji is asking, trust already report key person transactions in Form 10B audit report.
Ji.
Then in order to ascertain the reasonableness, can we expect a different reporting, or will it be picked up from the 10B report during scrutiny or assessment?
So you see, the 10B reporting is only for disclosure. Actually, 10B does not have a value judgment on whether it's reasonable or not. So it is a drawing attention kind of thing. When it is the assessing officer who decides whether it is reasonable or not. Now, in terms of the larger question, there was a proposed change in Form 10B, which was proposed, I think, 2-3 years ago, but that's not happened. So, it's gone into cold storage. So we don't know. But yes, 10B report is now quite outdated, and you may expect that in next 2-3 years, it might be changed.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjay ji.
Okay. We have another question from Mark Souza. Is it required for auditors to report all payments made to trustees or specified persons in Form 10B, whether they are reasonable or not?
See, my view is that all payments must be disclosed, and we are not required to decide whether it is reasonable or not. It is a requirement that it should be disclosed, and then only the responsibility or the power to decide on reasonableness is a matter between the AO and the SSC. Okay.
Then we have a question from Pragati. This is related to FCRA. Pragati applied for FCRA renewal during May 21, but the renewal certificate is not received. When can they expect to receive the renewal certificate?
Okay, so Pragati, if you can hold on to that question, we are just going to deal with that in this next session.
Okay, a question related to income tax. Can donor himself permit repurposing of the unspent grant amount?
Yes, if it is not. So what we have been talking about is accumulated amount. So if the amount has been accumulated for, let's say, educational purposes, and you want to use it for some other cultural purposes, there you need the approval of the AO. If it is not an accumulated amount, then the donor is perfectly capable of repurposing it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Another question. Shall I hold these for the end of the session?
As you wish.
Okay, so we have simple questions. So I think you can do it now. So from Sudeep ji, taxable income is calculated on accrual basis or payment basis?
We have always thought that it should be calculated on cash basis. And there were several colleagues who felt that it is calculated on accrual basis, because there was an option in the income tax form to specify basis of accounting. Now that actually was applicable only where you had income from business or gains from profession. It was not applicable to the organization in general. That is the clarification the finance minister has brought, that application calculation should be on cash basis only.
Another question from Vilas Shende. If we receive hospital building for repairs.
If we receive hospital building for repairs?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not clear. How do you receive a hospital building?
I think he's talking about if the NGO is contracted for carrying out repairs to the hospital.
No, I think maybe he's talking about money received for repairs to hospital building. So hospital building is not a religious structure. And therefore, that benefit will not be available to hospitals.
Okay, so a question from Arunji. I'll ask him to read it out loud.
सर मैं राजस्थान से अरुण जिंदल बोल रहा हूँ. मैं ये पता करना चाह रहा हूँ कि 12A में अगर हमें अप्लाई करना है फॉर द रिन्यूअल, क्योंकि अभी वो मार्च तक की डेट है, तो हमें 1023C में भी करना पड़ेगा?
नहीं, इनफैक्ट आपको एक में ही करना है. देखिए, उसमें अभी ये प्रोविजन आ गया है कि आप 12A या 1023C ही रख सकते हैं, दोनों में से एक ही रख सकते हैं. तो हम लोग ये सजेस्ट कर रहे हैं कि 12A रखिए, क्योंकि देखिए एक तो दोनों में कोई फर्क बचा नहीं है, और अगर आपके पास दोनों अप्रूवल है, और दूसरी बात है कि जो CSR में वो 12A का अप्रूवल मांगते हैं, तो आपको दोनों में अप्लाई करने की जरूरत नहीं, केवल 12A के रिन्यूअल के लिए अप्लाई करना है.
राइट सर. अभी इसके साथ आपने बताया CSR में 80G भी मांग रहे हैं 12A के
साथ.
80G,
12A 80G जी.
तो वो दोनों का करना पड़ेगा आपको CSR में?
हाँ, तो आपको 80G और 12A दोनों अप्रूवल लेने होंगे.
तो ये अलग अलग एप्लीकेशन डालनी पड़ेगी, क्योंकि 12A हमारे पास ऑलरेडी है.
हाँ, तो 12A का तो आपको रीवैलिडेशन कराना है ना, अगर आपका पुराना 12A है तो.
राइट. ठीक है. ओके सर, थैंक यू.
Okay, so we'll take up the balance questions at the end of the session.
ठीक है, great. Okay, so let's continue, switch gears, and we'll come back to this on FCRA renewal. So what I want to emphasize here is that FCRA is, I think, it's more less contribution and more confusion. So once again, the statutory warning that, Accountaid and all its associates advocate compliance with letter and the spirit of the law. So please don't use or think of any of these comments as encouraging violation. Now, before I get into this main, presentation itself, I want to share with you a very, very old story. And that story is from Mahabharata. I don't know whether many of you might be aware that there was Karn. He had a charioteer who was called Shalya. Now, Shalya was actually the maternal uncle of Arjun. So Arjun is here on the left, the person. This is Arjun. And this is Shalya. This is Shalya. And this, of course, is Karn. and here we have Lord Krishna. Now, what has happened is that Karn was an excellent, warrior, and there were doubts in the Pandav camp whether Arjun will be actually able to defeat him. So what these people in the Pandav camp they planned was that Shalya, who was actually fighting on the side of Kauravas due to some confusion, will become the charioteer of Krishna Karn, and throughout when he was driving the chariot, he will keep discouraging and demotivating Karn. So I think that was the first time when psychological warfare is mentioned, and this seems to have worked fairly well till the time when Karn became really irritated and lashed back at Shalya, which made him shut up. But that's a separate story. So what I want to emphasize here is that quite often we are faced with a situation where we are told discouraging stories on all sides. So, for example, in January, there was a story that 6,000 NGOs have lost their FCI registration. Now, this story reverberated across the world. And there were, interview requests from Europe, from US, from, India, of course, and there was so much confusion. Now, we tried to clarify that it is not, and the government also tried to clarify that actually only 179 NGOs have been denied renewal, and the rest of the 5,800 are cases where people had not applied. Now, these are two different things. And then we analyzed later on that most of these cases where people had not applied, that was because probably due to the fact that most of them had not been receiving any significant amounts of money. So anyhow, we are trying to clear up some of these confusions in this webinar also. And I want to share with you that analysis of about 4,000 applications shows that actually only 35 out of these 4,000 have been denied. 937 have been granted. And in 137 cases, clarification has been sought. And there are a number of cases which are closed, which I will explain what it means. And there are also some cases where actually the fee for the application has not been paid, so the application is not being processed. And about nearly 3,000 applications are under processing. So that processing is actually taking a lot of time. Now, so there is nothing like 6,000 NGOs having lost their FCI registration or being denied their FCI registration. Secondly, we've also done a state-wise comparison. So this chart you may find very interesting. At least I found it very interesting, and you can see how it is playing out. So if you look at some states, there has been no declines. For example, in the Northeast, there are 4 declines in Assam, in Arunachal, in Nagaland, in Manipur, in Mizoram, Tripura, and Meghalaya. There is not a single decline. So all these cases are no declines here. Then look at West Bengal. 155 cases have been approved and not a single decline. So 155 cases approval has been granted. Jammu and Kashmir, 10 approvals have been granted, not a single decline. Punjab, 3 approvals granted, not a single decline. Now let's go to the South. So in Gujarat, in fact, 76 approvals and 1 decline. Let's go to South. So Maharashtra, 114. Maharashtra is the state with the highest cases of decline that we have come across. So, that is coming out to nearly 10%. 114 cases where approval was given and 12 cases which are declined. In Karnataka, 112 approvals, 5 declines. In Tamil Nadu, 100 approvals, 3 declines. In Kerala, 3 approvals, no declines. In Andhra, 46 approvals, 1 decline. In Chhattisgarh, 15 approvals. So overall, what we are finding is, in fact, let's look at Delhi also. Delhi, 154 approvals, only 6 declines. So what we are looking at here is an amazing picture, to my mind at least. We are expecting that the total number of declines will eventually touch between 5 to 10%. I mean, we were expecting that it will touch 20%, but it is turning out that it is going to be, below 10%, it seems. So that's really, very, very positive news. And I think we need to take this process. We need to be a little more patient with where it is going. Interestingly, what are the reasons for denial? So in most of the cases that we have seen, misuse of FC is only one case that I have come across. There is misuse of FC. That is one case where a decline has happened. Most of the cases are for FCRA violation. Under 12.4A7, that is the section which talks about violation. And 2 or 3 cases are there which, where public interest is given as the reason for decline. Now, there are many cases where no specific reason has been given. They only mention section 16.1, which actually doesn't tell you at all which is an empowering section. It is not a section which specifies the reason for decline. So with that, background, I want to also share briefly what kind of key problems people are facing. One is the extraordinarily slow process. So clearly, the ministry is trying to process some 12 to 13,000 applications. This time the process is very onerous. They are verifying, very validating all the trustees. They're looking at affidavits. So everything is, very, very complicated and very, very slow. And I think they have, right now, they have reached only about applications which are filed in April or May till 21. Till that stage they have reached. And I don't think that they have gone beyond that. So they've probably not yet started dealing with applications which were received in July, August, September, and certainly not in October, December, as many NGOs did file then. Some states, we are seeing additional delays in the sense of the process. For example, Andaman and Nicobar, not a single approval so far. Some other states also, no approvals. Of course, Andaman Nicobar only has about 9 or 10 NGOs. But clearly, the distance and the logistics are slowing down the process. Fastest processing has occurred in Delhi. And, probably our traffic is very slow, but it seems that, renewal process is faster because we have 160 cases where decision has been taken, and out of that 154 approvals and 6 declines. So generally, you should be prepared to wait for at least 9 to 12 months till the time, your approval or decision is likely to come. And I would say that in most cases, it should be approval, except in cases where, there are specific issues which the government is trying to identify. Now, in many cases, the government is also asking clarification. Now, what kind of clarifications they are asking? So from what we understand from colleagues and others, most of the cases, what is happening is that they are asking for form FC4. So if you've not filed an FC4 for, let's say, one of the earlier years, or you've not filed for 2021, then also they are putting the application on hold and asking you to file the form. Now they give you only 15 days to do that. So what we are suggesting is that if any of your forms is pending, including for 2021, then please consider filing that form as early as possible so that your application process is not slowed down. The second very often we are seeing is there are problems with affidavits. So many cases, either the name is not matching or the affidavit is not notarized, or, some other problem with the affidavit is being noticed. In some cases, affidavits are not attached to the application. There are also some reports that the trustee is not traceable. For example, the IB inquiry, tries to trace down trustee. Trustee has the person is told that trustee has shifted to a different city. they try to connect there also they say that the trustee has gone to USA. So those cases, are also creating problems, Then, like I said earlier, in at least 2 cases that we are aware of, the NGO has filed the application FC3C, but has not paid the fees, or they've paid the fees and the transaction has not gone through. So again, that application cannot be processed. In many cases, they are these are the cases where they are treating the application as closed, and closed cases means that one DIB means Directorate of Intelligence Bureau. So DIB report is awaited, or there is an ongoing inquiry. Now this ongoing inquiry is really very, very sort of risky, in the sense that typically ongoing inquiry means that either it has been referred to the PMU, to the monitoring unit, or there is some other serious issue which is going on. Maybe there is some serious audit issue, or there is some other problem. So these are the cases where you may feel that you may be worried that maybe your approval might not come through. Now, in terms of status messages, just to explain again, closed means that the application is temporarily put on hold. So this is where all those cases where a DIB report is pending, or a monitoring unit report is pending, or inquiry is happening. So these cases will experience delays. It may delay maybe 6 months, it may be 1 year, it may be 2 years, but delays will be there. Fees pending, I have already told you that please, you should pay the fees. You should check, all of you should check whether your application is actually being processed. You may find that your fees has not been paid. Under processing, of course, is the most common. Bulk of the cases are, nearly 75% are under processing. Denied, as I said, very few. Of course, people who are facing that denial, they will be very upset about that. But in general, I am telling you that the cases of actual denials are relatively lower than one had expected. Many cases of clarification sought. Now, these cases is very important that you should pay attention to this. If you don't give that clarification within 15-20 days, then the clarification window will be closed and your application could easily be rejected. So please, be on top of things. Keep checking your status regularly, and make sure that you are resolving the clarification as early as possible. Sometimes the clarification can be very, very strange and very demanding. For example, in one case, the NGO received a letter from the FCI department saying that you have not filed separate accounts for several earlier years, and therefore we've calculated that the penalty for not filing this comes to so many crores. The amount of penalty comes to crores, and the NGO is required to pay that. Now, this is, of course, a case where the FCI department is required to collect penalty under the law, and also a practical problem that no NGO can, actually pay a penalty which is running into 2-3 crore rupees. So these are the challenges which FCRA is currently generating and NGOs are facing, and no doubt there is a lot of anguish on both sides. So to help you navigate through this, Accountaid has designed a couple of tools which I thought I will share with you briefly. One is this FCRA renewal outlook meter. So this FCRA renewal outlook meter actually is it's a tool to help you figure out when are you likely to get your FCRA, and what is the percentage chance of you getting FCRA. This outlook meter is being constantly updated based on the data that is, that becomes available. So, you may find that you tried it in maybe January, but if you try it again in February, the outlook date might have changed. So, so that, we request that you can use this. This is the form that you have to fill at the time of requesting the use of the from tool. And once you fill the form, you are taken to the tool itself, where you have to fill up some basic information. For example, what is the approach? What is your approach to work? Is it rights-based? Is it relief? which are the states where you are working. Then, what is your board profile? What kind of people do you have on board? Then how much funds you received in the past years, how much you spent, utilized. And based on that, your outlook is calculated. What is the percentage chance that, your FCRA will be renewed? And also, if you put in the application of your, the date of application here, then the date will also be calculated. So this is the from tool. And in addition to this, there is another tool which helps you check the renewal status itself. There's a link which will allow you to go to the FCRA site and check your application status correctly. Many people are checking this incorrectly and they get confused. That's why this tool has been designed. In addition to this, once you input your actual FCRA status after checking from the site, you will also receive advice on what you should do now. In terms of whether you should follow up, whether you should, worry about getting your FCRA registration or not. So all that is, in here on this tool. In addition to this, I have been requested by Accountaid to share with you that Accountaid has about 150 accountable issues on its site, which can be downloaded free of cost. It also has 580 or more capsules, which are, many of you are getting these Accountaid capsules. And I think some of you are at least reading them. That's why you are here today. So, you can read the capsules on Accountaid website, and you can also subscribe for free by clicking this link. And thirdly, very important, the FCRA Handbook 2021 edition. This is available for purchase at a website, which the link is given here, fcra2010.in. So from there, you can, buy the book, and that will also, of course, that contains a lot more information than I can give to you right now. It is actually will help you ensure that if you got your FCRA renewal, then it will remain in place for the next 5 years and beyond. So these are the 3 resources that I will recommend to you. Plus, I will recommend that, you can follow the Twitter handle of DevelopAid by, clicking on this and, subscribing. Also FCRA 2010, which is also frequent updates. In addition to this, there is also a Twitter handle, which is not mentioned here, but which I like very much. It is called Vani Info. So that Twitter handle also we request that, you consider following so that we can, remain in touch. Any questions or doubts you have, you can send Accountaid a query, or of course, you can ask the questions right now. Thank you very much.
Yes, Sanjay, shall I put up the balance questions here?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have multiple questions relating to individuals who have applied for FCRA renewal in the last 1 year, and they're still waiting for their renewals to be processed. So they're asking by when can they expect the renewal certificates?
So as I said that, this renewal, the chances and likelihood of renewal vary from case to case. It is not, first in, first out. First in, first out is only in terms of processing. So what you should do is really use this from tool, which is available at fcra2010.in, which I showed you just now. And that will help you calculate what is the likelihood and what is the likely date. And of course, as we find, how fast or slow the process is going, the date will also be adjusted by the tool accordingly.
Okay, thank you so much. Another question. This one is in Hindi. क्या income tax में cash basis account maintain करने को कहता है?
देखिए, अभी इनकम टैक्स में यही चेंज किया गया है। इनकम टैक्स में हम लोग हमेशा कहते रहे कि एक्चुअली अकाउंट्स तो आप किसी भी बेसिस पे मेंटेन करें, पर रिपोर्टिंग कैश बेसिस पे होनी चाहिए। मतलब इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न जो है वो कैश बेसिस पे फाइल करना चाहिए। इसी के लिए अभी मिनिस्टर साहिबा ने वो अभी इनकम टैक्स एक्ट में चेंज प्रपोज किया है, क्लैरिफिकेटरी, जिससे कि आपको सभी ये मैंडेटरी हो जाएगा कि सभी लोग इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न जो भरें एनजीओज वो कैश बेसिस पे भरें, बट अकाउंट्स आप अपना एक्रूअल बेसिस पे, मर्केंटाइल बेसिस पे मेंटेन करते रहिए, उसमें कोई हर्ज नहीं है। रिसीट्स एंड पेमेंट अकाउंट आप सभी बनाते हैं, उसके माध्यम से आप इसको रिटर्न को आसानी से भर पाएंगे।
So we have a question from Ramakrishnan Nagarajan.
जी.
Just to confirm, assets created out of an application of project funds must be reflected in the asset register, but must not be used for calculation of depreciation.
No, that's not the case. In Income Tax Act, what we're saying is that if you've, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
So he's asking the assets created out of application of project funds should be reflected in the assets register, but must not be used for calculation of depreciation.
No, it is if you've actually also, you know, that normally what you should do is you should claim it as application of income in the year in which you utilize in the year in which you purchase. If you claimed application, then you should not calculate depreciation on that. As far as Income Tax Act is concerned, you can continue calculating it in your own accounts, because the way the accounts are treated and the way, you know, income is calculated are two different things. So in income tax, any purchase of fixed assets is allowed as a deduction in the year in which you purchased it. And the clarification that has come is that in cases where there is denial of exemption, an asset which has already been claimed as application income, you should not claim depreciation on that. That's only for denial of exemption. Let's hope that you will never face that denial of exemption.
Okay, another question. What is the standard deduction on rental income earned by a trust?
So I think there is a standard deduction of 1/6 of repairs.
1/6 is allowed for repairs.
But I will need to recheck this. Can you send us a query, an email to query@accountate.net, ma'am, or sir, so that we will recheck and confirm this? Income Tax Act is, you know, such a maze, labyrinth, that it's very difficult to remember every provision. Please do that.
Okay, and a question from Pradeep ji. Can we utilize the corpus fund principle created as an endowment if we are running short of funds?
Yes, but you know, if you do that, then I think there will be certain implications. Somehow, you know, I remember reading that if you use the corpus, then it will be added to your income in the year which you use it. Because first year when you receive the corpus, you've not treated as income. I couldn't find it when I was making the presentation. So if you can send me an email, I will make sure that, you know, I will recheck and we will confirm this to you.
Question from Prasanna Desu. Do we need to prepare a receipts and payments account for FCR and income tax returns?
Yes, actually, see, FCRA returns must be filed on receipts and payments, receipts and payment basis. In fact, receipts and payment account is the base document for preparing FC4. And if you're not doing that, then you are in trouble. For income tax also now, because it is cash basis accounting, this is cash basis reporting. So you must therefore prepare a receipts and payment account and use that to calculate your reportable income.
Okay, another question. How do we identify accumulated income in case of multiple projects?
So two things. One is that, you know, in your audited accounts, you must already be having a chart where, you know, you are tracking the the unspent funds donor wise. As far as the income tax return in income tax is concerned, income tax allows it. You know, there is a tracking mechanism there also, that you must report year wise how much you've accumulated and for what purpose. In your own accounts, you will have to, correlate the, the purpose which you defined and which funds were these, in order for you to figure out whether you've applied those or not.
A question from Ranjit Swain. Will Income Tax Department decide the minimum and maximum amount as reasonable for trustees to pay against the services provided?
Ranjit ji, let's hope that they don't do that, because I think they are already overstretched. But that is when, you know, you use the word reasonable in the Indian context. You see, the law is different. I'll give you an example. the Indian law is actually based on British law, and British laws leaves a lot to the judgment of the assessing authorities. If we were in the US, they would have specified, maybe some amounts. But in Indian law, what is considered reasonable by the rest of the people in the society, that remains the criteria.
A question from Nisreen Ibrahim. There is an understanding that the trust may lose its charitable status if unreasonable payments are made to related persons. So can we infer that it is now being made more specific in terms of penalties?
So, Nisreenji, what happens is that the year in which you make an unreasonable payment to a key person, that year you may be denied the exemption. So there are two things. One is exemption for a particular year, and the other is your tax exempt status. If you are continuously denied your exemption for several years, then the AO may initiate process to take away your approval. Then that's a different ballgame. But as far as this is concerned, it's only that year that you will be denied exemption. And when you are denied exemption, then, like I said earlier, you will have to pay a penalty on the unreasonable amount, plus you will have to pay a penalty on specified income, in the sense that I mean tax on the specified amount involved in the violation, and any tax that may be calculated due to disallowance of this amount. So there will not be any flat tax on the entire income of the organization. Like I said earlier, let's say that an NGO has received 10 crores in income, and the unreasonable amount is only 5 lakh rupees. So it will not lead to denial to taxing of the entire 10 crore rupees.
Prasanna Desu is asking, they have got their 12A and 80G renewal certificate, but it is showing as provisional approval. Do they need to resubmit any application?
No, I think that is a glitch we've not been able to figure out. Everyone is getting the same thing, that it shows provisional. And I believe the understanding in the income tax department is that what you got is an automated provisional approval. And 5 years later, when you come up for revalidation, at that time we will conduct a detailed scrutiny. This is exactly the same thing that Vani had said earlier. I remember Harshi had mentioned that in 2011 the FCI department had given automatic approval to everyone. In 2016 they had given approval after filing of the application. In 2021 they are doing detailed scrutiny. So right now in 2021, as far as income tax is concerned, you are getting automated approval, which is provisional, but 5 years later you will be put through the grinder. So you have this 5 years to make sure that your books and your activities are in line with Income Tax Act.
Okay, Sushila Joseph is asking a question.
Ji.
Sir, can you explain the TDS on medical expense? She is running. I am from NGO Nuns. Do we need to pay TDS on our medical expenses?
If the medical expenses are in the nature, if you're receiving a reimbursement, then I think probably you will have to, because I think they are now part of the standard deduction. But this is best taken up with your auditors. They will be able to guide you more contextually.
Another question from Rajesh Singhi. Many NGOs calculate only that income in the income and expenditure account, which is spent from donor funds. Is that right? Does it have any implication on the 85% spent?
So I'm not sure what Rajesh means by this. My understanding is that many NGOs actually take the donor funds, the grant funds, to balance sheet. There is a school of thought which says that is correct. And there's a school of thought which says that, entire grant should be taken in income, and maybe, what is remaining unspent should be shown as a liability. But certainly, at some stage or the other, both the donor funds, own funds, as well as grants should be brought to the income expenditure account for a proper presentation.
Okay, another question from Ranjit Swain. This is again related to 12A and 80G provisional approvals. He's asking whether these provisional approvals will be made permanent in the coming years, Or is there any negative repercussions for getting a provisional approval?
No, there is no negative. That is just a process. So everyone has to, when you get the first approval, first time, it will be provisional for 3 years. And if you already had approval earlier, then it is provisional for 5 years. By provisional, I think what they mean is that this has been given in a hurry. So next time, we will give it after proper scrutiny. That's the only difference. So you have to, in any case, you can't survive without a 12-way approval.
Moving on to questions from related to FCRA. Rangarajan L is asking, what is the position of an NGO whose tracking file shows that the file has been closed?
So that's what I explained, that, closed, along with close, Mr. Rangarajan, you will see what is the comment. So it might say close waiting for DIB report or field inquiry or monitoring. So if DIB or field inquiry, that is normal. And as far as if it says a case referred to monitoring or waiting for monitoring unit report or for ongoing inquiry, then the matter is more serious.
Right, sir. Right. Okay. We'll check on that, sir. I do remember that there was something mentioned in the bracket, but then I think I need to log in for that and see again.
Right.
Thank you.
So Aditya, there are 6 people who raised their hands in the chat box.
Right.
Do you want to summarize some of them?
Sure. I'll do that. Yeah.
You'll have to unmute them.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Rajiv ji.
Yeah, hi. We have an NGO in Andhra.
Ji.
We couldn't able to apply for renewal till now.
FCRA renewal?
Yes.
And what was your due date?
Due date, it says seized. The certificate is seized.
Okay, so that means that, see, after it ceases to exist, I mean, so your due date might have been 31st December.
Yeah, I think it's November 11th. November 11th, it shows, I think.
November 11, 2021.
Yeah.
Right. So that was automatically extended up to 31st December. Now, in these cases, you are allowed to apply up to 1 year afterwards with late fee.
Okay.
So you should immediately do that, because if you don't, then, the government will take away all your FCRA assets and everything.
Okay. And one more thing, we didn't file our annual report for last year, 2020 and 21.
So that you must immediately do. Otherwise, your case will be delayed further. And plus, of course, there are all kinds of penalties.
Yeah, it's asking for a penalty to pay the whole of the amount what we received, because we received a little amount.
So then, yes, up to 1 lakh rupees, the penalty cannot exceed the amount of FC that you received. So you should happily offer that to the government. In many cases, NGOs are asked to pay 1 crore, 2 crore rupees also. I will also, again, suggest that if you get the copy of the FCRA handbook from AccountAid, that is a very valuable, of course, if I may say so myself, it is a very valuable tool which will explain many of these issues, plus many more.
Yeah, we got late in opening our bank account with the New Delhi branch. So that's why we couldn't able to fill it up, because when we were filling up the annual return, it was asking for the new bank details.
Right. So these are all the information gaps which, you need to be on top of, because FCRA is very, very intricate. And that's why, for example, this edition of the FCRA handbook has become so detailed and, running into 500 pages. But also, please subscribe to AccountAid Capsule so that you can from time to time be aware of these things. Vani also sends out mailers from time to time explaining these things. There's a lot of, information gap in the sector, which leads to these problems.
Okay. Once we apply for a renewal, when they come for a verification, would all the board members have to be present, or?
No, they will not meet them together. They will make a verification at their residence or their place of work.
Usually, what do they ask when they come for verification?
Okay, so now what you're doing is you are interviewing me.
Sorry.
There are other people also who are waiting for questions. So
thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Rafael from Karnataka. First, thank you very much for your expertise. It's very much appreciated. Which kind of delay would you expect for the NGO that applied late and paid the late fees, for example, at the beginning of January? And also, would you feel there is any way to get the same extension the other NGO got until the 31st of March? Many thanks.
See, if your FCR had already ceased by the time that you applied, then the FCR registration will remain in abeyance till the time your application is processed. And the minimum that you can expect is 1 year processing time. It may run to 2 or 3 years also. For example, there are some cases where they had applied in 2016, but the approval has come only in 2021 or in 2020. So, it's not a very good, outlook. And in this interim period, the department has said that you can neither receive nor spend any of the money that you have already received. So it's a very bleak winter for you.
Yeah, it's very complicated. Many thanks. And the second question was, do you think there is any way to justify the case and to get the same extension as the other NGO got until the 31st of March?
No. That is something that will probably be not very likely. You can, FCI department does make a number of exceptions. Maybe, if you can offline check with them and or share the details. In deserving case, I mean, we know that they do allow certain exceptions, but in general, this is not something that you can't expect in general unless your case is extraordinary.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next.
Ajhar ji, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. सर सवाल ये था सर का तो मैं कंटिन्यू मेल देखता रहता हूँ सर 2-3 सवाल थे। पहला ये था कि एमसीए में जो रजिस्ट्रेशन कराना था वो कराया हम लोगों ने, बट उधर से कोई अदर रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर नहीं मिल पाया। दूसरा सर ये था कि 31 दिसंबर को हम लोगों ने रिन्यूअल दाखिल किया एफसीआरए का ड्यू टू सम प्रॉब्लम्स ऑफ आधार एंड पैन ऑफ द मेंबर्स, बिकॉज वी आर लिविंग इन अ वेरी रिमोट एरियाज जहाँ पे जो भी हमारी कम्युनिटी के लोग हैं वही मेंबर्स हैं, तो उनके पास पैन कार्ड नहीं था, तो इसकी वजह से डिले हुआ। तो क्या एफसीआरए हमारा रिन्यूअल हो जाएगा? तीसरा, हाँ सर बताएं।
नहीं देखिए, वो सीएसआर वाला क्वेश्चन तो मुझे जहाँ तक मैंने काफी दिन से देखा नहीं है, पर ऑटोमेटेड है, वहां से तो रिस्पांस आ रहा था यहाँ तक मुझे याद। इसका आप ईमेल एक बार लिख दीजिए,
ठीक है,
जो आपका एप्लीकेशन वगैरह का डिटेल और ईमेल लिख दीजिए query@accounted.net पे। दूसरा जो आपने अप्रूवल का कहा था कि अप्रूवल तो आपका आ ही जाएगा अनलेस कोई आपने बहुत ही ज्यादा गुस्ताखी करी है, तो अप्रूवल तो आपका आ जाएगा, पर टाइम लगेगा। 31 दिसंबर जिसने अप्लाई किया है उनको लगभग ये समझ लेना चाहिए कि दिवाली क्रिसमस तक अब छुट्टी रहेगी, क्योंकि मार्च में आपका एक्सटेंशन जो है वो हो जाएगा, खत्म हो जाएगा जी। उसके बाद आपका अप्रैल से जो है आपका पीरियड, डिफिकल्ट पीरियड चल सकता है। तीसरा क्वेश्चन क्या था?
तीसरा सर था जो हम लोगों को 12A ATG मिला हुआ है वो प्रोविजनल शो कर रहे हैं, तो क्या उसके बाद
वो सभी का प्रोविजनल होगा, हो रहा है। वो जब 5 साल बाद आपकी क्लास ली जाएगी ना, तब वो आपका पक्का करेंगे। ठीक है,
थैंक यू सर।
जी, गायत्री जी, गायत्री प्रसाद जी।
हेलो
जी,
थैंक यू सर। 2 क्वेश्चंस थे। One was basically on the DIB inquiry. So what would that mean, and what is the chances of us getting the renewal if there is a DIB?
See, DIB is perfectly routine. So it is only Directorate of Intelligence Bureau, which is actually present everywhere in India, but is not seen by us. So when you're buying your morning bread or cake, maybe, there is a person sitting there and checking how many loaves have you bought. So that is how they do a perfectly routine inquiry.
Okay.
And that is only because there are so many cases that they have. They can't mount so many people to do the inquiry, and that is why DIB reports are being delayed. So what FCI department does is they say that, okay, we've done our process. Now depend if the DIB process, the DIB report comes out clean, we will give this approval. In the meanwhile, we'll put it on closed. Closed means actually it is on hold in a sense.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean anything except that, you applied very early and your the department has not yet, got your report.
So could this also mean a lot of delays, because we had applied in October 2020? We had a few queries that our SBI account was not open. We responded in January last year. So it's more than 12 months since we even gave responses.
See, ma'am, what happened was that people who applied in around, last year in 2020, all of them were required to open the SBI account also.
Yes, we had that.
And then, they had to give their affidavits. Affidavits were there, of course, from early on. But so effectively, I think many of those cases, their applications were taken up only around April or so, after the bank account was opened and updated. I think you should expect delay. And now, of course, the DIB inquiry, because of that, it is on hold. It means 90% of the processing has been done, and 10% is waiting for that. DIB report. So if you are in Karnataka and the person who's come to you for the DIB inquiry, they called you up, then maybe, you can check, because I think people in Karnataka are very helpful, and you can check with them that whether the report has gone, and maybe they will oblige you. Okay.
Miss Rachel.
Okay, so I think that's Rakel, is it? Rakel Jyoti Chilla? Ma'am, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm Rachel.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, what's my question was, can one person be in different organizations, like different FCRA organizations?
If a person is chief functionary in 2 or more organizations, then, their FCRA registration or renewal will become very difficult. But otherwise, they can be in multiple organizations.
Okay, but so if the person is chief functionary, it will affect to get FCRA renewal?
No, chief functionary in 2 organizations.
Okay.
So you are chief functionary in A and you are a board member in B. There is no problem. But if you are chief functionary in both A and B, there is a problem. If you are a board member in both A and B, there is no problem.
Okay. And my another question was, if we have any mistake in filing FC4 donations, like, will that affect to get FCRA?
What kind of mistake, ma'am?
Our auditors forgot to file 1 year's income donations.
1 year's income?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, why did your auditors forget to file?
I don't know.
No, so you do your accounts or your auditors do the accounts?
But filing, they are doing.
But they are not signing the FC4.
Yeah.
See, so I'm sorry, I'm speaking to you like this, but what I want to emphasize is that many of us always think that our auditors will do this. But the fact is that auditors are only useful if they are checking the work that you have done.
Okay.
If you give them the primary responsibility of filling up your FC4 or your income tax return or your accounts, making the account, then, their usefulness is reduced. So please, you should fill up your FC4 and then get the auditors to check it. That is the best approach. Now, in this case, what has happened is that if it is a serious default, in the sense that the amount involved is significant or is causing any problem, then you should write a mail to the FCI department requesting that, we have made a mistake in this year in filling up FC4, and can we be allowed to correct it? But if, so you received the amount in a particular year and you have used it up, then maybe, you can let sleeping dogs lie, because it is not affecting your opening balance.
Okay. Is there any provision in refiling the donations?
No, there is no provision. You have to request them with folded hands, and they will probably, hopefully help you out.
Okay, thanks.
Bibhas Deka ji?
Hello.
Ji.
Actually, I'm called myself Bibhas Deka. I'm from Foundation for Social Transformation. My question is that we have filed our FC renewal in the month of June.
June 21.
June 21.
Ji.
So recently, we received the query on December 2021 regarding our name. Actually, there was a mismatch in the name as per our society registration and as per the FCRA registration. So
Ji.
we have submitted a affidavit and we have submitted them, but till now the process is still it shows under process.
See, I think so. So let's say that your society's legal name is Foundation for Social Transformation, is it?
No. The society's name is the Foundation for Social Transformation, but in FCRA it is Foundation for Social Transformation. So that is the mismatch. So we have submitted an affidavit that both are same and both are in the same place.
So I will also suggest that in addition to this, you can file form FC1A, I think. No, not 1A. I think 6A, which allows you to update the name of the organization in the system.
6A.
6A, I think. You can check in the handbook. It is written very clearly. I can't remember offhand, but I think it's 6A or 6A probably. And along with that, the certificate, etc., you should include and use that to correct the name.
So should we do it immediately or should we wait for the...
Yes, you can do that immediately.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Nisar Ahmed ji.
सर मैं बिहार से बोल रहा हूँ सर।
जी बोलिए।
सर हमारा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है 2 साल पहले उसको रेन्युअल किया था पर लेकिन ये डिक्लाइन कर दिया और अभी डीम्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में उसको रख के बाद क्या हमको फिर से रेन्युअल करना पड़ेगा?
नहीं, अगर आपका 2 साल पहले डिक्लाइन कर दिया था, कब डिक्लाइन किया?
ये डिक्लाइन किया 2019 में
और अभी डीम टू सीज में दिखा रहा है।
हाँ, डीम टू सीज में दिखा रहा है सर।
हाँ, तो वो डीम टू सीज तो देखिए कैच ऑल कैटेगरी है। उसका मतलब है कि आपका जो है वो पहले ही कभी भी बंद हुआ हो, किसी भी वजह से हुआ हो, अगर आपने सरेंडर किया हो तब भी डीम टू सीज दिखाता है। तो अभी आपको अगर करना है तो आपको दोबारा उसके लिए फ्रेश रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए आवेदन करना होगा। आपका डिक्लाइन कब हुआ था, आपके पास डिक्लाइन कब आया था, तो आप उसके लिए रिवीजन के लिए अप्लाई कर सकते थे सेक्शन 32 में। तो अगर वो नहीं किया है, टाइम उसका निकल गया है, तो फिर आपको दोबारा फ्रेश रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए अप्लाई करना होगा।
तो सर 2019 में मेरा डिक्लाइन हुआ था, तो कितने फिर अभी उसको कर सकते हैं सेक्शन 32?
मेरे ख्याल से तो शायद टाइम निकल गया है, एक बार FCRA हैंडबुक से चेक करना पड़ेगा। मेरे ख्याल से टाइम निकल गया है, शायद 1 साल का ही टाइम होता है उसमें।
अच्छा,
रिवीजन के लिए, या शायद रिवीजन के लिए टाइम नहीं है। तो आप लेकिन आपके पास कोई ग्राउंड्स है क्या रिवीजन के लिए?
ये तो जानकारी नहीं है सर। इसका दूसरा ऑप्शन क्या है? हम इसको फिर से फ्रेश
फ्रेश रजिस्ट्रेशन भी कर सकते हैं कि रिवीजन की एप्लीकेशन डाल सकते हैं, उसके लिए पैसा भी कम लगता है और प्रोसेस भी थोड़ी सी फास्ट है। लेकिन उसमें यही बात होती है कि पहले ये पता होना चाहिए आपका क्यों डिक्लाइन हुआ है। अब आप वहाँ बिहार में बैठे हैं, आपको कुछ जानकारी नहीं है कि क्यों डिक्लाइन हुआ, क्या हुआ, आप बता भी मतलब आप सोचें तो आपको पता नहीं चलता है, FCRA डिपार्टमेंट बताता नहीं है, तो किस ग्राउंड पे करेंगे, ये एक इशू होता है। तो या तो आप अपना जो पेपर्स है वो एक बार query@accountant.net पे भेज दीजिए, तो मे बी वो उनको कुछ फिगर आउट कर सकेंगे क्यों डिक्लाइन हुआ, और उसके बाद फिर आपको वो गाइड कर सकेंगे।
कौन सा अकाउंट सर बोले? क्यों?
query@accountant.net।
ठीक है सर।
Okay. So Aditya, if there are any questions in the chat box, do you want to take some of them?
Right, so I'll resume from where we left off.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Prasanna Bolam. What is the payment gateway that the department is referring to for making payment for review of application in case of denial? And how do they make the payment of 3,000?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. So actually they talk about a payment gateway, but I think in practice, you have to make a draft and pay them. So this is something that please send us an email. We will recheck this and confirm. because for revision application there is no gateway on the site. So it's an application which is made, and along with that probably you'll have to send a draft. So the gateway is not active for that.
A question from Archana Agarwal. All of our trustees got a call from MHA about 4 months back, but our FCRA application is still showing as under processing.
Gee, so that's okay. That is very normal. And when did you file your application? That depends on when they filed their application. Like I said, 9 to 12 months after the date of filing is very normal if there are no adverse issues.
Yeah, sir, we filed our application in, I think, June 2021. And even immediately after filing, after 1 month, all of our trustees got a call from MHA asking about their name, their profession, their family details, etc., etc. But after that, there is no...
So that is why you became very happy that you will now get your renewal quickly. But like I said that, June cases are being processed now. Okay. So, maybe in the next 1 or 2 months before 31st March, you will get your approval. Okay. In Delhi, particularly, the process is much faster. Maybe because, the IB is here only. Probably, you will get it in the next 1 or 2 months. Use the from tool to estimate, ma'am, because that will give you a good idea of when, what, if there are any specific factors in your case.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
A question from Jogendra Bisht. Their 3 governing board members are also working in the projects and taking salaries. Will there be any issues under the proposed income tax laws?
If they are, there is no change in the tax laws. It is only a clarification. Earlier, there was no penalty. Now penalty is being added. So in the reasonableness and unreasonableness remains the same. So if the amounts are reasonable, then there will be no penalty. And it is for actual services, then there is no penalty or problem.
Okay, another question, Mr. John Peter is asking, they used the from tool and got a probability of 80% or so, but what is the basis for calculating that probability? And are there any negative points which will delay or reject their FCRA?
So you see, I am not fully familiar with, what is the algorithm which accountant has used, but I understand that it is dependent on the choices you make. And the factors which are there. So if you got 80%, then yes, I think that is slightly below what is for majority. So probably there are some factors which are reducing your likelihood.
Okay, another question related to FCRA. Participants are saying that you have rightly mentioned the renewal process will take 8 to 9 months, but the last date for processing the renewal is 31st March 22. What should be done after that?
So we should cross that bridge when we come to it. Because I think again, if a lot of applications remain pending, and then the department might extend. Otherwise, if they find that they have been able to dispose of, bulk of the applications, then they will, not extend. So our reading so far is that they will probably have to extend, or they might want to extend, but we can't really say what they plan to do. So if they don't extend, then whoever's got it will be okay, and maybe 10-20% people who remain left behind, they will have to suffer. That's how it will be.
Question from Mr. Gopi. He's asking whether for the FCR renewal application affidavit, the attachment is required only if there are changes in key functionaries.
See, you should just attach the affidavits for everyone. You should make sure that it is there for everyone. Whoever is in the form, For all of them, the affidavit should be there. Affidavit is one of the problems which is holding up many applications.
A question from Bikash Karmakar. What about the FD interest accrued as per the FD statements? I think this is related to FCRA, accounting treatment.
So that will be treated as foreign contribution. If it is accrued, then it is not yet income. If when it is received, it will become income for income tax and also for FCRA.
संजय जी मैं विकास बोल रहा हूँ नॉर्थ ईस्ट नेटवर्क से
जी।
एक्चुअली क्या है ना, हम लोग का जो फिक्स डिपॉजिट का इंटरेस्ट है उसमें टीडीएस भी काटता है। तो ये टीडीएस तो एक्चुअली हम लोग को क्लेम करना होता है, तो इसलिए हम लोग उसको एक्चुअल बेसिस पे टीडीएस एफडी का एंट्री करते हैं।
हाँ बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं आप।
तो उनको अभी अगर हम लोग कैश बेसिस पे अकाउंटिंग करेंगे तो उस टीडीएस का हम लोग क्या करेंगे?
जी बहुत अच्छी बात है। देखिए, कैश बेसिस अकाउंटिंग का जो लॉ में चेंज आया है वो तो केवल एप्लीकेशन के लिए है, ठीक है ना, कि एप्लीकेशन ऑफ इनकम विल बी अलाउड ऑन पेमेंट बेसिस ओनली। बट आपका पॉइंट सही है, क्योंकि टीडीएस मिसमैच हो जाएगा तो प्रॉब्लम होगी। इसको एक बार ईमेल कर दीजिएगा, तो मैं अपने और प्रोफेशनल फ्रेंड से एक बार इसको कंसल्ट करके ना आपको आपके साथ रिस्पांस शेयर करेंगे।
ओके, ठीक है, थैंक यू।
A question from Mr. Ranjit Swain. Will the income tax department introduce specified account keeping system for NGOs?
आप पहले वो इन्होंने ही वो पूछा था ना कि स्टैंडर्ड स्पेसिफाई करेंगे कि नहीं अनरीजनेबल अमाउंट का। तो देखिए, मुझे लगता है कि जनरली एज ऑफ नाउ देयर इज नॉट मच लाइकलीहुड, बट for other SSCs also there has been some movement towards these kind of things, so it might happen, very much it might happen.
A question from Gopi, Mr. Gopi. Is it mandatory to upload the balance sheet, income expenditure account and receipts and payments account of FCRA on the organization's website?
Yes, that is also one of the compliances we've talked about in the FCRA handbook. And if you're not doing it, then you can face problems.
A question from Rajesh Kashyap ji. This one is in Hindi. हमारी संस्था को 12A व 80G का प्रोविजनल सर्टिफिकेट मिला है, क्या इसकी साइंड हार्ड कॉपी इनकम टैक्स से प्राप्त होगी?
नहीं, अभी तो किसी चीज की भी साइंड कॉपी नहीं मिलती ना, हार्ड कॉपी। तो वही आपको जो मिला है ना, वही आपके लिए कॉपी रहेगी।
Okay, a question again from Mr. Gopi. CSR grants are required to be audited separately. If so, should the statutory auditor do that audit?
देखिए, जो CSR, जो आपका statutory auditor will do your normal audit. If CSR grants are to be audited separately, then the donor will initiate that audit. So you don't need to worry about that.
Okay, a question from Prashant Kumar. Is restricted grant out of income tax computation?
This is a challenging issue, because many people, like I said, there are two different views on this. One is that people say that it's a liability and we are only doing that. This is in a way, in a sense, they're saying that this is client funds and we are receiving it only for the purpose of acting as an agent. But I don't think that may be perhaps useful view, but I don't think that on the whole it's a right or the balanced view. Ideally, only the question is that restricted funds, when do they become your income? So in the year in which you fulfill the requirements applicable to that conditional grant, that is the year it becomes income. So whether or not we should account for it in the income expenditure account, and how should we treat all this, is I think you should consult your auditors, because they will be able to better guide you.
A question from Vanniswara Reddy. They have a bank balance in their FCRA utilization account. They are asking, should they transfer this to their designated SBI account?
Not required unless you are closing the utilization account. if you know, or you know, you if you have another utilization account where you want to use it, you can directly transfer there also.
Yeah. Question from Abhijit Upadhyay ji. A staff is employed in FCRA project and the organization has a general practice of giving staff quarters at nominal rates. Now the staff quarter rent is to be paid back to the parent organization. Can this be done? Another associated question. Deduction is done from his salary.
Wait. So let's first take that one.
Sure.
The staff quarter, what is this question?
Staff is employed in an FCRA funded project and the organization has a practice of giving them quarters at nominal rates. Now the staff quarter rent is to be paid back to the parent organization.
By whom?
The NGO. So they're asking, can this be done?
See, if you are doing it because it is out of FCRA funds, then you know a lot of complications arise. You will want that it should go to non-FCRA. What we say is that in such cases, to avoid the acquisition of mixing of funds, you should keep it in FCRA accounts only, but in the non-earmarked section. That means that not for a particular project, you keep it in the FCRA account only, and there you use it for repairs, etc., whatever is to be done to those quarters. Okay.
So Abhijit ji is unmuted, so yeah, in case you have any queries.
Abhijit ji?
Okay, so I'll move on to his associated question.
Ji.
He's saying the deduction for this is done from the employee's salary and is due to be paid to the branch organization. Can this be paid to the branch organization?
I think it might be best if you send this question to query@accounted.net, because then we can apply our mind to it properly and then you give you an answer.
Okay, question from Sudeep ji. They filed their income tax return on the accrual basis. Since in the current year they need to file their ITR payment, receipts and payment accounting. So there will be excessive expenditure as they had received some income in advance. What should be the treatment of the additional expenditure in current year?
So you see, whatever you have already claimed in the past on accrual basis, that you will not be allowed on cash basis. That's the only difference.
Okay, a question from Samir Shirsagar. Like application of income, receipt of income is also to be taken on cash basis. Accrued income will not be considered.
No, this is this is something that is not quite clear to me. How income will be taken. My understanding is that both income and expenditure should be taken on receipt basis. That is how the design of the law is. But if you so we will, I think we need to think a little more about the income aspect and then come back to you.
A question from Karthik Guduthar. Their FCRA renewal is due in May 22. Then he's asking what is the time frame for renewal and what happens if no response is received post May 22. Can they continue their activities?
See, so if your FCRA renewal is due in May 22 and you already applied, when have you applied, sir?
Just unmute. Requested.
Hello. Hi, sir. We are yet to apply for renewal.
So it is due in May 22 and you have yet, it is expiring in May 22.
Yes.
And you have not applied for renewal.
We are yet to apply.
So you should have applied at least 6 months before. I mean, at least 6 months before, immediately 6 months before. That means for May, you should have applied early December, because that's the earliest you can apply. But if you are not applying so far, then as I said, that it will take the department at least 9 to 12 months to process your application. And once your FCRA expires, you can neither receive your money, any money, nor can you spend any money. So you should immediately apply.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, a question from Meena De Silva. If there are no transactions in the FCRA bank account, she's talking about the SBI and DMB account, for a considerable period, then what will be the status of that account?
No transactions in the FCRA?
SBI NDMB account. I think she's asking whether the account will become dormant or not.
I don't think that these FCRA accounts become dormant, but I just last, a couple of days ago, someone had said that the SBI is asking for a minimum of 5,000 balance to be kept in the account. So, but the accounts won't become dormant, and that's not the case. I mean, if they become dormant, then that's only an internal process, and you can activate it again by making any. See, why banks make the account dormant is to prevent fraud on the account. So if you have any money coming in, then again it can be activated. Otherwise, you should make some transaction and ensure that the money is like deposit 100 rupees of foreign contribution or withdraw a little bit of money. Then the account will remain active.
The question from Mr. Anamul Haq. He's asking a key functionary forgot his login ID and password. Then how can he get his ID back?
1 second. So you have to write to the FCI department and on your letterhead, and they will send you the login ID and password.
Question from Bharat Raut. What is the process of closing FCRA utilization bank account?
See, you can close it, but there apparently there is no procedure for intimating the closure of utilization bank account. It will remain, on the FCRA list for the time being.
Okay. A question from Balari Phaila. Okay. So they are asking that they cannot file their FC4 since 2019-20 and renew their FCRA certificate because they cannot open their SBI NDMB bank account as the branch manager keeps on changing. So what should they do in this case?
These are practical problems which I can't solve for you. So you have to, figure out a solution. I think you might be needing some voice rest. So do you want to take some of the verbal questions now?
Sure. Yeah. K. Khadar.
Khadar ji?
सर गुड इवनिंग सर
जी
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन क्या है कि एफसीआरए रिन्यूअल करे है सर हमें स्टार यूथ एसोसिएशन आंध्र प्रदेश में एफसीआरए रिन्यूअल करके है मगर वो उसका स्टेटस कहाँ पर देखना चाहिए सर
वो इसलिए वो आपको एक वेबसाइट का एड्रेस बताया ना आदित्य कैन यू पंच इट इन द मेन बॉक्स चैट बॉक्स fcra2010.in तो वहां आप जाके ना उसमें एक टूल्स करके है तो वहां जाके आप उसमें देखेंगे तो वहां आपको एक लिंक मिल जाएगा जिससे आप FCRA का स्टेटस चेक कर सकते हैं। तो वो होता तो FCRA की साइट पे ही है लेकिन वो कंफ्यूज हो जाते हैं लोग इसलिए हमने ये बताया है।
FCRA 210 सर
ठीक है मैंने आपका इसमें लिखा ना चैट बॉक्स में fcra2010.in और ये आदित्य जी ने भी पोस्ट किया है रिन्यूअल स्टेटस चेक। ठीक है जी
हमने ATG को अप्रूवल किया है सर। ATG में कंट्रीब्यूशंस फॉरेन वाले कौन तो भी करे तो अदर स्टेट्स
सॉरी
अदर फॉरेनर्स कौन तो भी डोनेशन दिए तो वही डोनेशन किस पर FCRA में बताना नहीं जनरल अकाउंट
नहीं अगर फॉरेनर ने डोनेशन दिया है तो आपको FCRA में लेना पड़ेगा ना
FCRA में लेना पड़ेगा उनको एग्जम्पशन मिलता है ना सर
अगर फॉरेनर इंडिया में है तो उनको डिडक्शन मिलेगा।
हाँ सर
ठीक है
ओके
आदित्य एक बार ना आपका जो FCRA 2010 वाली जो आपकी हैंडबुक है उसका भी बुकिंग फॉर्म का आप एक यहाँ वो डाल दीजिए so that people can see and purchase the book if required. जी गोपी जी गोपी तिरुमलापुरा जी Gopi ji.
Sir. Good evening, sir. Sir, that question already been answered.
Okay.
In that chat box. One thing is that, see, this 20% admin cost, no, sir, which is on the basis of the receipt only, not as per the comparison 20% on admin cost. As per the law, it shows receipt. But is it on the comparison to be made on expenditure or the receipt for that particular year?
See, the law says, amount received. But whether that means, that we should calculate it on the amount received, so there, some problems can arise. Now, let's say that you receive 1 crore rupees at the end of the year. Now, that year you find that there is a lot of money available for you and you can spend 20 lakh rupees on admin.
Yeah.
Now, next year you don't receive anything because that same money you are going to be spending next year. Correct. How will you report your admin next year? So we have been suggesting in the FCRA handbook 2010 also it is recommended that you should calculate this on the basis of actual amount utilized. And that's how, FCRA department also seems to be calculating it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Rajkumar Narang ji.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. From Bangalore Nightingale's Medical Trust.
Ji.
So my one question: we are implementing many projects on our own, but 3 projects are which we are implementing on behalf of Government of India. So, for example, one of them is National Helpline for Senior Citizens for all districts of Karnataka state. Now they are giving us sanction, and whatever expenditure we do, they give us advance also. So that we draw from that, and balance has to be returned. Access is not claimable. But now this particular Maharashtra Authority for Advanced Ruling, that judgment has come, that grants will be subject to GST. Now it has created a lot of confusion. So because supposing our budget, they have fixed sanction 150 lakh. So we spend 150 lakh and they give us 150 lakh.
Yeah.
So now this particular ruling of Maharashtra, so what is your opinion about this and what precautions we should take or whether we should surrender the project?
So we had done this workshop, I think last month. CRAI had organized this. And there we had explained in detail, how it should be done. And I think that video is available on the AccountAid or DevelopAid website. And you can, I'm sorry, there is, I didn't mention to you, there are YouTube websites for all the presentations made by AccountAid and by DevelopAid. So there, you can see the past webinars, the recording of those webinars. And I think one of them is on GST, which was dealt earlier. So please, use that. But broadly speaking, to answer your question, it's a matter of specific determination in each case of fact, whether or not the grant will be chargeable to GST. In general, the principle seems to be that GST department is saying that wherever you are, getting paid for doing specific work, there, you should, pay GST. Our understanding is that, first of all, you have to see whether or not there is actually, it is in the course of business. If the work that you are doing is not in the course of business, because in Maharashtra case, what happened was that these people said that we are providing these services to the government and for which the government is paying us so much. And should we pay GST on that? So that's like, going and asking a police officer that, sir, I am planning on stealing some money from my neighbor and whether I will be allowed to do that or not. So obviously the police officer will say that is not allowed. So therefore the question referred to the Maharashtra ruling authority was not framed properly. And but there is another ruling in Delhi, which is also on the similar footing, IICA, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. So we are saying that you should proceed with extreme caution, but at the same time, surrendering may not be, stopping the work may not be the best option. So perhaps you want to write an email to query@accountaid.net with the details where we can look at specifically what are the issue and enclose the agreement with the government, which describes the nature of the work, then we can advise you more effectively.
So we can send government or the MOU as well as the sanction letter.
Ji.
So based on that, you can provide us some.
Ji. And please remember that, Account Aid or Develop Aid or even we do not charge any fees from any implementing NGO. Okay. So Bhikan bhai?
Yes sir, मैं नासिक अभिव्यक्ति से बात कर रहा हूँ
जी।
मेरे दो सवाल थे। एक सवाल ये था कि जैसे आप बता रहे थे कि रिसीट पेमेंट हमने तैयार करना चाहिए ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में, तो हम एफसीआरए के जो बैलेंस शीट होती है उसमें तो हम करते, लेकिन हमारा जो महाराष्ट्र में जो चैरिटी कमिश्नर का जो फॉर्मेट है तो उसमें रिसीट पेमेंट वहाँ पे एसेट लायबिलिटी है और इनकम और एक्सपेंडिचर का फॉर्मेट है। तो क्या इनकम टैक्स पर्पस के लिए हमें रिसीट पेमेंट बनाना जरूरी है?
देखिए भिकन भाई, आप मान लीजिए खाना खाने जाते हैं और वहाँ आपको लगता है नमक कम है, तो आप दुकानदार से कहते हैं भैया नमक दे दो, टेबल पे नहीं रखा है तो भी ले लेते हैं ना। तो इसी तरह से रिसीट पेमेंट अकाउंट अलग से बनवा लीजिए, वो आपके बहुत काम आएगा।
ओके ठीक है। और दूसरा सवाल ये था कि जैसे कि 12A और ATG का हमने रिन्यूअल किया और रिन्यूअल दोनों सर्टिफिकेट आ गए प्रोविजनल, लेकिन एक जो सर्टिफिकेट है 12A का तो उस पे लास्ट पेज जो होता है जहाँ डिजिटल सिग्नेचर होता है तो वहां पे ऐसा ग्रीन टिक है, और दूसरा जो ATG का सर्टिफिकेट है वहां पे येलो कलर में क्वेश्चन मार्क है। तो ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा है।
तो मुझे लगता है वो ऐसा होगा जब आपने डाउनलोड किया होगा ना तो आपका शायद वो वेरीफाई नहीं हुआ होगा। ये जो ग्रीन और येलो होता है ना, ये सिग्नेचर वेरिफिकेशन के लिए होता है।
ओके।
तो ऐसा प्रॉब्लम नहीं होना चाहिए, पर एक बार उसका स्कैन करके या आपका सॉफ्ट कॉपी होगी तो ईमेल कर दीजिए query@accountant.net पे, तो देख के कंफर्म कर देंगे।
ठीक है, चलेगा। ओके सर, थैंक यू।
जगन्नाथ मिश्रा जी।
हाँ, मैं जगन्नाथ, आई एम फ्रॉम ओडिशा, जगन्नाथ एकता ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। एक्चुअली वी हैव अप्लाइड फॉर रिन्यूअल, FCR renewal on 5th July 2021, and IB report inquiry and completed. When we search the status from MHA portal tracking, showing under process. But till that we have not any correspondence from the MHA.
So under process means that they are actually checking, or see, the day you file, that is the day they will show it as under process. And it will remain under process till the time it is granted, unless there is a problem and they ask for a clarification. So nothing to worry about. What is the date when you filed your application?
5th July 2021.
So I think Jagannath ji, you should wait till the next time the Jagannath Yatra takes place. Till that time, your approval will not come.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Swati ji. Swati Sharma ji. Okay. Swati Sharma ji. Okay.
Muted, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Ji, Swati.
Yes, sir. Sir, we have regular employees in our head office, and they also worked for FC or non-FC projects, and we have charged their time in the projects. So, can we book the expenditure for time charging in FCRA projects and consider this as an income in FC books, or is it paid to concerned employee from FCRA account?
See, first of all, there should be no transactions between the FCRA and the non-FCRA books. So that's very important for you to understand.
Okay.
The second thing is that typically it is best to pay directly to the employee from the FCRA account, even if you have to make 2 or 3 different transfers for different projects. Because when you make this transfer from the project to the main FCRA account and then, account for it, then I think the audit trail becomes a little wacky. And even we, as regular auditors, we find it difficult. And if, God forbid, an FCRA audit takes place, then they will be completely confused and they might give a negative report. So try and keep your FCRA accounting as straightforward as possible. And I will also take this opportunity to mention that FCRA audits are regularly taking place all the compounding fees which is collected, that is also increased after the audit takes place. So you should make sure that your FCRA compliance is fully shipshape. For example, in the FCRA handbook, we've explained how you should keep your fixed asset register in paper format rather than in Excel, because the FCRA department doesn't accept that. And then similarly, the investment register, what are the physical verification procedures you should follow? So, I'm again and again requesting you that you have received your renewal or you have your FCRA right now. Please make sure that you are fully compliant. Please learn from workshops, webinars, books, whatever is available. Please pay serious attention. Because in most of the cases, as I mentioned earlier, some simple violation, if noticed, can either trigger heavy compounding fees or even, non-approval of your renewal application. So please make sure that you and your team are fully informed. Why I'm giving you this long lecture is that, sometimes what happens is that in order to meet the donor requirements, we end up unintentionally violating an FCRA sacred rule, which is that accounting, there should be no transaction between FCRA and non-FCRA. And FCRA funds should only be spent for what they are received. So if those two principles you can keep intact, then maybe you can do that. Otherwise, please avoid.
Okay, sir. Sir, I have another question. Sir, क्या हम लोग ESIC का पेमेंट जो हमारे एम्प्लॉयज का है वो नॉन एफसी के कोड से पे कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते हैं?
जी मैं समझ गया आपका इशू क्या है। इसमें हम लोग ना ये काफ़ी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड इशू है। मेरे को जहाँ तक पता है शायद ESI के लिए आप 2 चालान जनरेट कर सकते हैं। अभी अगर आप 2 चालान जनरेट कर सकते हैं तो एक PF से एक FCR से कर दीजिए, एक नॉन FCR से कर दीजिए। अगर 2 चालान जनरेट नहीं होते तो आप ऐसा करिए कोशिश की वो क्या कहते हैं कि उसको आपको अपना जो मिक्स है ना सैलरी का मिक्स वो ऐसे कर दीजिए कि आपको सारा का सारा ESI का पेमेंट आपका FCRA या नॉन FCRA से ही निकले। अदरवाइज वर्स्ट केस में हम लोग ये सजेस्ट करते हैं, रिकमेंड नहीं करते कि आप एक बैंक अकाउंट खोलिए जो लिखा रहेगा ESI ड्यूज और उसमें एग्जैक्ट अमाउंट आप लेके जाइए जितना आपका उस महीने ESI बना FC का और जितना बना नॉन FC का, और वहां से आप पेमेंट कर दीजिए। बट अगेन एंड अगेन आई एम एम्फसाइजिंग दैट FCRA ऑडिट जो है वो बहुत पेनफुल प्रोसीजर है। जहां तक संभव हो आप ये सब चीजें अवॉइड करिए।
ओके सर, हम एक मशीन किसी प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर में ली थी हम लोगों ने FCRA प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर, और उसका मेंटेनेंस हमारी जो सब्सिडरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है उसने किया। लास्ट ईयर का पॉइंट है और मेंटेनेंस चार्ज किया है हमने उस प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर, बट हमने अभी तक उसको पेमेंट नहीं किया है हमारी सब्सिडरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को। सो कैन वी पेमेंट?
देखिए अब सब्सिडरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का अगर ये नॉर्मल बिजनेस है कि वो मशीन रिपेयर करते हैं तो फिर आप उनको पेमेंट कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि अगर उनका बिजनेस नहीं है, वो NGO है, तो प्रिजम्पशन बनेगा कि ये आपने उसको ट्रांसफर किया है FCRA से नॉन FCRA ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को, या सेक्शन 7 का वायलेशन बनेगा। तो अगर आपको स्पेसिफिक केस देखना पड़ेगा।
ओके हम लोगों के पास एक्चुअली FCRA जो है वो हमारी मेन हेड ऑफिस, FCRA जो अकाउंट है वो हमारा मेन हेड ऑफिस में है और हमारी सब्सिडरी इंस्टीट्यूशन में वो प्रोजेक्ट रन हुआ था, इसी वजह से वो मशीन भी वही है और उसका मेंटेनेंस भी उन्होंने ही करवाया।
मैम मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, एक्चुअली अंडर लॉ FCRA में कोई सब्सिडी का कंसेप्ट नहीं है। ऐसा नहीं, आपका या तो वो सारे के सारे मेन एंटिटी का ही हिस्सा है। अगर जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल कई बार होता है कांग्रेगेशन में एक कांग्रेगेशन है और उसके बहुत सारे अलग अलग उन्होंने ऑफिस खोल रखे हैं, तो उसमें कहीं सेम पैन नंबर पे मल्टीपल एंटिटीज यूज करने लगती हैं FCRA, तो वो वायलेशन हो जाता है। तो आप स्पेसिफिक आपका इशू क्या है नाम और डिटेल से ना आप query@accountant.net पे भेज दीजिए, तो वी विल बी एबल टू एडवाइस यू मोर क्लियरली। ठीक है। प्रदीप खरे जी।
जी सर।
जी प्रदीप जी बताइए। प्रदीप जी अनम्यूट कर लीजिए। प्रदीप खरे जी अनम्यूट कर लीजिए प्लीज।
हाँ सर नमस्ते।
जी बोलिए।
हाँ सर नमस्ते, प्रदीप बोलो, मध्य प्रदेश छतरपुर से एमपी से।
जी बोलिए।
सर मेरा एक ये था कि मैंने अपना एफसी रिन्यूअल अक्टूबर में करा था,
अप्लाई किया था,
दिसंबर में अप्लाई किया था, और अभी जो स्टेटस आ रहा है वो सर अंडर प्रोसेस आता है
जी।
तो एक तो ये था सवाल,
आप
ये था
देर से आए हैं क्या सेशन में?
नहीं सर, मैं काफी समय से शुरू से जुड़ गया था।
तो
सर
ये तो पूरी रामायण इसी बात पे बांची गई है कि 9 से 12 महीने लगेंगे।
मैंने सुना काफी समय सुना है। आपने एक जन ने और पूछा था किसी भाई ने, ये तो आपने बताया, मैं भी सुन रहा था। तो वो भी आपने एक
लेकिन मजा नहीं आया संजय, लेकिन मजा नहीं आया।
नहीं तो दूसरा एक और सवाल था कि मेरा एक यूटिलाइजेशन अकाउंट था, मैंने खोला था जो एफसी फंड के अंतर्गत, तो उसका मैं जबकि हर बार जो एफसी 4 में जाता है रिन्यूअल जो अपन फाइल करते हैं और सब चीजें जो रिटर्न में करते हैं, मगर उसका जो एफसी मिनिस्ट्री को जानकारी भेजी जाती है उसमें काफी लेट हो गया, और मैंने अपने सीए से बात की तो बोले कि अब वो आपने बहुत लेट कर दिया है तो अब उसको फाइल करने का कोई समय नहीं है। तो एक मैं जानना चाह रहा था कि सर वो क्या मैं अभी उसको सबमिट कर सकता हूँ वो अकाउंट?
किसको? यूटिलाइजेशन अकाउंट आपने इंटीमेट नहीं किया है?
जी सर जी।
तो 15 दिन के अंदर इंटीमेट करना होता है, अगर नहीं किया है तो भी इंटीमेट कर दीजिए, बाद में पकड़े जाएंगे ना तो बहुत परेशान होंगे।
नहीं तो क्योंकि वो अपन ने सब चीजें, क्योंकि हर चीज में तो भेजा है अपन ने, रिटर्न वगैरह ऑडिट वगैरह में सब में शामिल है, मगर उनकी साइड वाले जो उस पे वो नहीं था।
भाई सड़क में आप छतरपुर से दिल्ली आ रहे हैं, पूरा रास्ता आप ठीक चलाते हैं, हमारे दिल्ली में भी एक छतरपुर है, वहां दाएं से बाएं कर देंगे तो एक्सीडेंट हो जाएगा, ठीक है ना? तो इसलिए ये बात नहीं है कि सब ठीक किया था ये नहीं हुआ, इसको भी ठीक कर लीजिए प्लीज।
जी सर जी सर, थैंक यू।
ज्यादा होगा तो आपसे कुछ कंपाउंडिंग फी मांग ले, कुछ वो नहीं कुछ करेंगे, आप लेट कर दीजिए फाइल उसको। मतलब आपने बेसिकली FC 6B C या D नहीं फाइल किया है।
जी जी, जो अकाउंट इन्फॉर्मेशन देता है
हाँ, तो वो प्लीज फाइल कर दीजिए, इमीडिएटली कर दीजिए।
जी सर, थैंक यू सर। जी जी
ओके। अच्छा कपिल जी का तो मैं सबसे बाद में क्वेश्चन पूछना चाहिए, कपिल जी के बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन होंगे।
प्रदीप जी का।
प्रदीप जी।
सर प्रदीप अग्रवाल बोल रहा हूँ।
जी बोलिए।
मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है सर, हमारी सैलरीज हम लोग जो डाल रहे हैं प्रोजेक्ट में अलग डाल रहे हैं, एडमिन में अलग डाल रहे हैं, प्रोजेक्ट में इन दिनों एक्चुअली प्रोजेक्ट में ज्यादातर ऑनलाइन काम हो रहा है, वेबिनार्स हो रहे हैं, तो हमारे एक्चुअली खर्चे फिजिकली खर्चे नहीं हो रहे, लेकिन सैलरी तो हम बुक कर ही रहे हैं प्रोजेक्ट में, उससे कोई इश्यू तो नहीं आएगा कुछ उससे?
मतलब किस तरह का इश्यू परेशान कर रहा है आपको?
मतलब हम प्रोजेक्ट में सैलरी तो बुक, जो हमारे परमानेंट एम्प्लॉइज उनकी प्रोजेक्ट में हम सैलरीज बुक कर रहे हैं, उसके कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग उनको मतलब प्रोग्राम
एक्टिविटी नहीं दिखाई दे रही,
एक्टिविटी नहीं दिखाई पड़ेगी।
हाँ तो देखिए ये बड़ा अच्छा प्रश्न है आपका, इसको मैं थोड़ा ऐसा बताना चाहता हूँ कि इसको ये एडमिन एक्सपेंस से संबंधित आपका प्रश्न है मुझे लगता है,
प्रोग्राम एक्सपेंसेस से रिलेटेड।
हाँ वो मतलब एडमिन एक्सपेंस और प्रोग्राम एक्सपेंस कैसे करें, तो उसमें क्या है कि FCRA में ये ब्रॉड प्रोविजन ये है कि जितना आप खर्चा करते हैं सैलरी वगैरह पे, चाहे वो प्रोग्राम स्टाफ हो या नॉन प्रोग्राम स्टाफ हो, सभी जो होती है वो आपकी मानी जाती है एडमिन एक्सपेंस टू बिगिन विद।
अच्छा।
उसके बाद उसमें से वो देखते हैं कि अगर आपका वेलफेयर ओरिएंटेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है तो वो आपके स्टाफ जो कि उन एक्टिविटीज में शामिल है उसका सैलरी प्रोग्राम में ले जाते हैं, या अगर रिसर्च वाला ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है तो उसका सैलरी रिसर्च एग्जेम्प्ट कर देते हैं। तो आपको पहले ये सोचना पड़ेगा कि आपका ऑर्गेनाइजेशन किस कैटेगरी में है, रिसर्च ट्रेनिंग में है या वेलफेयर में है। तो अब रिसर्च का मतलब होता है आप बड़े खतरनाक रिसर्च कभी कभी लोग करते हैं जब मान लीजिए पॉलिटिकल रिसर्च कर दी, तो स्टैटिस्टिकल रिसर्च कर रहे हैं या क्वालिटेटिव रिसर्च कर रहे हैं?
सर हम लोग इलेक्शन पर रिसर्च करते हैं।
अरे बाबा अरे बाबा, तो वो तो फिर थोड़ा सा मामला, बिकॉज स्टैटिस्टिकल रिसर्च जो है उसी का वहाँ पे एग्जेम्पशन है। तो मेरे को लगता है आपको शायद ऑफलाइन एक बार query@accountant.net पे डिस्कस करना चाहिए और बाकी वो एक आपको FCRA की हैंडबुक में अपेंडिक्स 9 है
जी जी,
जो उसको बताया गया है, मेरे ख्याल से लिंक भी पोस्ट किया है। तो FCRA की हैंडबुक में एक अपेंडिक्स 9 है, उसको जरूर एक बार ध्यान से देख लीजिए अगर आपके पास हैंडबुक ऑलरेडी हो। अगर नहीं हो तो फिर अमेजोन से या हमारे ऑफिस से ऑर्डर कर दीजिएगा।
सर मेरा दूसरा क्वेश्चन था सर, इनकम टैक्स रिफंड जो आता है हम लोग TDS तो FC में भी कटता है, लोकल अकाउंट में भी कटता है।
जी 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 जी
कटता है लोकल में।
जी जी जी।
तो उसमें क्या आगे हम तो एंट्री तो हम लोकल में करते हैं, फिर उसको JB के थ्रू एडजस्ट करते हैं।
जी ये तो बस बड़ी स्टैंडर्ड प्रॉब्लम है, तो इसका कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं है अभी। इसके बारे में मुझे लगता है कि वाणी को एक बार FCI डिपार्टमेंट को थोड़ा रिप्रेजेंटेशन करे तो बड़ा अच्छा रहेगा, क्योंकि ये है और ESI का भी, हर्षी दोनों की बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आ रही है लोगों को, क्योंकि ESI में एक ही पेमेंट शायद लेता है, PF में तो 2 चालान लगने लगे हैं।
PF में तो 2 चालान लगते हैं, हाँ।
ESI में नहीं लगते, और ये इनकम टैक्स रिफंड का ये खुद ही सरकार का ही प्रोसीजर है। तो हम वैसे ये कहते हैं हम कि देखिए अगर आपका सारा रिफंड जो है वो FCRA का बन रहा है तो आप अपना FCRA अकाउंट नंबर वहाँ मेंशन कर दीजिए। अगर सारा रिफंड आपका इंडियन बन रहा है तो इंडियन अकाउंट मेंशन कर, तो ये थोड़ा सा रिलीफ होता है इससे। पर जहाँ मिक्स्ड रिफंड है वहाँ कोई सोल्यूशन है नहीं।
हाँ, मिक्स ही है।
तो इसके लिए मुझे लगता है कि डिपार्टमेंट से एक बार पूछना पड़ेगा। ठीक
है सर, थैंक यू सर।
ओके, सो कपिल जी, कपिल सांगवान जी।
नमस्कार संजय जी, हमेशा की तरह यू कंटिन्यू टू इम्प्रेस।
नहीं बताइए
जी। फर्स्टली सर, I was not able to find anywhere the list of books and accounts that we should maintain for our FC accounts, for the FCRA accounts. So is there anywhere you would recommend? Even your handbook could not help me much on that.
Books of accounts, who should maintain?
The FC registered organization, the NGO.
देखिए उसमें जो आपके एक्स्ट्रा रिकॉर्ड्स हैं वो तो उसमें लिखा हुआ है, FXS रजिस्टर है, इन्वेस्टमेंट रजिस्टर है, प्रोग्राम रजिस्टर्स हैं। उसके अलावा तो नॉर्मल बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट ही मेंटेन होती हैं और कुछ नहीं होता है। जो कैश बुक है, लेजर है, जर्नल है, बैंक बुक है, यही मेंटेन होता है और कुछ नहीं है।
अच्छा, ओके, अंडरस्टूड सर। सेकेंडली सर, all the bills, invoices, payment documents, can we all maintain it in soft form, soft copy, because we are।
देखिए ये बड़ा आपका अच्छा प्रश्न है, इस पे मैंने बहुत रिसर्च करी थी हम लोगों ने कि ये जो सॉफ्ट कॉपी है ये इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट में कवर होता है कि नहीं, तो इस पे कुछ क्लैरिटी नहीं हो पाई है। इसमें क्या होता है कि अगर आप किसी डॉक्यूमेंट को कोर्ट में एविडेंस के लिए प्रोड्यूस करते हैं तो उसको ऑथेंटिकेट करना पड़ता है कि दिस इज अ ट्रू कॉपी ऑफ द ओरिजिनल। अब अगर आपका ओरिजिनल ही नहीं है, ओरिजिनल ही आपकी सॉफ्ट कॉपी स्कैंड है, जैसे ऐसा हुआ ना, आपको एक वेंडर ने इनवॉइस भेजी, तो अगर वेंडर ने आपको इनवॉइस इलेक्ट्रॉनिकली भेजी तो वो आपके लिए मुझे लगता है सफिशिएंट एविडेंस नहीं है। अगर उसने आपको पेपर कॉपी भेजी जिसको आपने स्कैन करके और अपने पास रखा, उसको कर दिया कि ये ओरिजिनल अलग रखी और स्कैन वहाँ रखी, तो आप वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं, तो आप उसको क्लेम कर सकते हैं जेन्युइन है। अदरवाइज आपका प्रॉब्लम होगा इसमें। इलेक्ट्रॉनिक इनवॉइसेस वहीं पे फिजिबल है जहाँ पे देयर इज एन इलेक्ट्रॉनिक प्रोसेस। किसी कॉपी की स्कैन्ड कॉपी, जेपेग कॉपी, ऐसे उसको हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि ये जेन्युइन है या सफिशिएंट है। तो ये थोड़ा सा यहाँ चैलेंज रहेगा कपिल जी। ठीक है, ओके।
We have a question. Sir?
Third question?
Yes, sir. You said rightly.
हाँ बोलिए।
So,
अजहर अली भाई, मैंने आपका हाथ गलती से नीचे कर दिया था, अभी आपका मैं नोट किया हुआ है, या तो आप अपना हाथ दोबारा ऊपर कर दीजिए, मैं पूछ लूंगा नहीं तो। जी हाँ बोलिए कपिल जी।
So, sir, there is a CSR funded project that we undertook during the COVID, sir, and the corporate based at Bangalore, they gave us the funding for that. Now, the employees of that organization also, as a group, came together and made a collective donation. Individually, they all collected money, and that also came to us for this particular project. So, will this employee donation has to be considered as a restricted grant, or a restricted donation or?
देखिए, अगर कोई भी डोनर ये लिखता है कि एक पर्टिकुलर प्रोजेक्ट के लिए यूज होना है तो वो दैट इज द रिस्ट्रिक्शन कि उसी काम के लिए होना चाहिए। तो अगर वो एम्प्लॉय उसका आपको टर्म्स और कंडीशंस में देखना पड़ेगा किस तरह का उसका लिंक बनता है। अगर उसमें ये बन रहा है कि इसी काम के लिए दिया गया है, एम्प्लॉयज़ ने दिया है, सोर्स कोई भी हो, अगर एम्प्लॉयज़ ने दिया है तो फिर उसको आपको रिस्ट्रिक्टेड मानना पड़ेगा। पर अगर एम्प्लॉयज़ ने जनरली कहा कि ये हम आपके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को दे रहे हैं डोनेशन, दे हैव नॉट स्पेसिफाइड और सिलेक्टेड और इम्प्लाइड एनी पर्पस, देन दैट इज नॉट अ रिस्ट्रिक्टेड डोनेशन।
Okay, sir. So in the same CSR funded project, sir, can we make some payments out of the FC funds? Will it be considered as mixing of funds?
नहीं, अगर आप देखिए मिक्सिंग कब होती है, मिक्सिंग तो वहां होती है जब एक बैंक अकाउंट में चले जाए या एक बुक्स में चला जाए। तो अगर आप एक एम्प्लॉय को फॉर एग्जांपल एक पेमेंट एफसी से करते हैं, एक पेमेंट नॉन एफसी से करते हैं, तो कोई मिक्सिंग नहीं होती। इसलिए अगर आप उसको कर रहे हैं, आप अपने अकाउंट्स में अलग अलग रख रहे हैं और जहां रिपोर्टिंग रिक्वायर्ड है वहां वैसे कर रहे हैं तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी।
Right, sir. And if you permit, one last question, sir.
Okay, provided is last.
I'm choosing one of the two, sir. I had to.
नहीं तो फिर हम बाद में भी कर सकते हैं, मुझे मालूम है आप जाएंगे नहीं कहीं।
Okay, sir.
ठीक है, तो अजहर अली जी, आप प्लीज अनम्यूट कर लीजिए।
थैंक यू सर।
अजहर अली जी, अजहर अली, आपका प्रश्न है प्लीज। अच्छा, मुझे लगता है नहीं सुन पा रहे हैं। प्रवीण कुमार जी, प्रवीण कुमार जी, आदित्य कुमार,
हाँ यस सर।
जी बोलिए जी।
हाँ सर, मेरा पहला क्वेश्चन तो सर जैसे आपने ऑलरेडी बताया सर कि जो हमारा एफसी का जो टोटल फंड होता है उस टोटल फंड का यूटिलाइज का 20% लेंगे या सर हमें इस 21-22 के अंदर जितना फॉरेन रिसीट मिला उसका 20% लेंगे? तो यूटिलाइजेशन का ना सर?
हाँ
ओके सर। सर ऐसा रूल तो नहीं है ना कि रिसीट का ही लेना पड़ेगा एफसी का?
नहीं, वो रूल में थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन है। देखिए, इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट का रूल इतना ज्यादा क्लैरिफाई करते हैं कि उसको पढ़ना ही मुश्किल हो जाता है और एफसीआरए वाले कुछ बताते ही नहीं है, तो आप उसको यूटिलाइजेशन पे ही लेके चलिए प्लीज।
ओके सर, थैंक यू सर। और सेकंड क्वेश्चन सर ये था कि जैसे हम कुछ कंसल्टेंट को सर जो पेमेंट करते हैं, जैसे हम दो प्रोजेक्ट से करें, एफसीआरए से भी कर रहे हैं और हम अपने नॉन एफसीआरए से भी करें, तो सर जो उसका जो टीडीएस होता है वो तो हम कहीं से भी कर सकते हैं ना? फॉर सपोज अगर किसी को जो भी अमाउंट पे किया है तो टीडीएस हम एक अकाउंट से डिपॉजिट कर सकते हैं ना?
टीडीएस तो आप आराम से कितनी बार भी जमा कर सकते हैं ना, तो आप क्यों एक अकाउंट से करना चाहते हैं?
सर सपोज जैसे हम कोई कंसल्टेंट है सर, जैसे हम नॉन एफसीआर अकाउंट से
मैं आपको वही बता रहा हूँ कि टीडीएस चलान, हाँ मैं इसीलिए कह रहा हूँ कि अपनी अकाउंटिंग को स्ट्रेट रखिए ना, फिर आपका मिक्सअप हो जाए। अदरवाइज आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा, जैसे मान लीजिए टोटल पेमेंट 20,000 का है, तो एफसीआरए से आप पूरा 10,000 पेमेंट करेंगे और 10% टीडीएस काटना था, तो इनका नॉन एफसी से 8,000 करेंगे और 2,000 टीडीएस जमा कराएंगे, यही करेंगे ना?
यस।
तो इसमें थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन होने का रिस्क है। अदरवाइज अगर आपको लगता है आप कर सकते हैं तो करिए, उसमें कोई बात नहीं।
तो सर मतलब बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस क्या रहेगी? क्या सर दोनों जगह से सपोज अगर मैंने 8
देखिए, एनजीओ में ना बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस का नहीं होता, एनजीओ में ये होता है फीजिबल प्रैक्टिस का, क्योंकि एनजीओ के पास कोई ऐसा तो होता नहीं, बहुत बड़े उनका इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर अकाउंट्स वगैरह का होता नहीं है। तो सिंपल ये है कि जितना पेमेंट हो रहा है वो उसको ट्रैक करते रहिए। आप इमीडिएटली अगर एंट्री पास कर रहे हैं एफसी नॉन एफसी से, एज लॉन्ग एज यू कैन मेक श्योर कि आपका अकाउंटिंग सही सेट हो रही है तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। मेरा एडवाइस ये है कि अगर पॉसिबल है तो चालान पे कर दीजिए, एक एफसी से चालान बना दीजिए, एक नॉन एफसी से बना दीजिए। ओके
सर आपका वॉइस ब्रेक हो रहा है सर।
मैं कह रहा हूँ एक एफसी से बना दीजिए, एक नॉन एफसी से बना दीजिए।
ओके सर, थैंक यू सो मच। ओके, थैंक यू।
ओके, अजहर अली जी आप वापस आ गए हैं क्या? अजहर अली, अजहर अली नहीं आए हैं आज। प्रवीण कुमार आपको पूछना है? निसरीन जी आप पूछिए प्लीज। निसरीन।
हेलो।
हाँ निसरीन जी। जी
अच्छा, एक था कि ये जो एफसीआरए रिन्यूअल मार्च में लैप्स हो जाएगा, सो इफ वी डोंट गेट रिन्यूअल टिल देन, हमारे पास जो अकाउंट में पैसा होगा, वुड वी बी स्टिल अलाउड टू यूज दैट?
नहीं देखिए, ये तो मैं बार बार कह रहा हूँ ना कि अगर आपका रिन्यूअल नहीं होता है तो एफसीआई डिपार्टमेंट अगर एक्सटेंड उसकी डेट नहीं करता है, जो पैसा आपके पास अनयूज्ड है वो यूज नहीं कर पाएंगे। यही तो अभी नया इन्होंने किया है 31 दिसंबर को जो नोटिस।
यस, तो देन दैट रूल के भाई आपने अप्लाई किया है, आपने फी भरा है, ऑल दैट विल बिकम नल एंड वॉइड।
अच्छा 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 अच्छा।
हेलो,
एक मिनट। हाँ मैं थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूज हो रहा हूँ, लेट मी थिंक। हम लोग कह रहे हैं कि आपने अप्लाई कर दिया है।
अप्लाई कर दिया है,
ठीक है, सॉरी, इसको मैं एक बार रीचेक कर लूंगा, बट आई थिंक आई वाज मिस्टेकन। आई थिंक वो तो जब तक आपका अंडर प्रोसेस रहता है ना, तब तक वो प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी। जब आपका सीज्ड, डीम टू सीज कर देता है या डिनाई कर देता है, तब ये वाली प्रॉब्लम है कि व्हाटएवर यू हैव रिसीव्ड यू कैन नॉट यूज।
ओके, सो उससे रिलेटेड संजय जी, द नेक्स्ट दिस थिंग इज कि अभी तक तो लाइक सितंबर और दिसंबर का दिसंबर मार्च वगैरह का जो हुआ, तो उसके अंदर इन एंटिसिपेशन मेनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस इंक्लूडिंग आवरसेल्व्स कॉल्ड फॉर फंड्स फ्रॉम द डोनर, रिक्वेस्टेड फंड्स, पर अभी ये एक्यूमुलेशन को लेके भी थोड़ा लाइक आपका क्या एडवाइस रहेगा? बिकॉज मार्च एंड भी आएगा एंड रिन्यूअल नहीं आया, और हम डोनर को रिक्वेस्ट करें कि भाई आगे की पीरियड के लिए हमको काम चलाने के लिए जस्ट गिव अस द फंड्स, बट देन हाउ विल इट इम्पैक्ट एक्यूमुलेशन इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट दैट यू हैड डिस्कस्ड?
एक्यूमुलेशन में तो कोई इशू नहीं है ना, क्योंकि आप फॉर्म 10 फाइल कर देंगे उसके लिए, या 9A फाइल कर देंगे, उसका तो इशू नहीं है। इनकम टैक्स में इशू नहीं है। केवल
this year's budget provisions going forward in April, there is no added caution that one would have to.
नहीं, वो तो देखिए, एक्चुअली ये वाला जो बजट है, इन्होंने इसमें काफी सहूलियत दी है एनजीओज, चैरिटीज को, और काफी चीज क्लैरिफाई करी है। केवल दो एक ही प्यूनिटिव हैं, जो कि अनरीजनेबल बेनिफिट टू ट्रस्टीज वगैरह, बट तो इसलिए इनकम टैक्स में तो कोई परेशानी की बात नहीं है। मेन जो इशू है वो ये कि आपका अगर इफ यू आर वन ऑफ दोज आउट ऑफ दोज, वो जो 5% डिनाई होने वाला है, उनमें से अगर आपका नाम आ गया, तो जो पैसा आपका वहाँ रखा हुआ है वो फंस जाएगा।
yes.
हाँ, तो फिर आपको उसमें कोर्ट वगैरह में जाना पड़ेगा, वो सब करना पड़ेगा।
तो
इसलिए
otherwise post March, if you don't get renewal, the funds that you have, you should be allowed to use.
हाँ, unless you are denied, और
unless you're denied, yeah.
और इसमें हमेशा बात क्या है कि जो भी है ना, वो एफसीआई डिपार्टमेंट की साइट पे वो जैसा दिखाएंगे उसी हिसाब से चलना पड़ेगा हमको।
राइट।
और इसमें हो सकता है 31 मार्च को वो कोई क्लैरिफिकेशन इशू कर दें, फिर हम लोग इसलिए वो लगेगा कि गलत बोल दिया। एफसीआई डिपार्टमेंट जो बोलता है वही सही होता है, बाकी सब तो ऐसा ही है।
Yes. And another question, Sanjay, was rent of space. Like we have community centers in the slums. तो एक हमारा सेंटर है, वो एक दूसरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से हमने जगह ली है जो FCRA रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है। So वहाँ पे end use principle अभी we have exercised on the side of caution. We are paying rent from the Indian funds, but budget, can we pay that and take the end use principle for rent के भाई ये it is not transfer to another non-registered organization?
ये end use principle जो है ना, ये बहुत ज़्यादा इस पे हमें रिलाई नहीं करना चाहिए। मेन चीज़ हमें ये देखनी चाहिए कि ये is it in the ordinary course of business or not। तो अगर वो जैसे कि आर्म्स लेंथ ट्रांजैक्शन है वो आप ये डेमोन्स्ट्रेट कर सकते हैं, रेंट ले रहे हैं, रेंट दे रहे हैं, बिकॉज आपको ही मालूम, मुझे मालूम है कि रेंट के नाम पे भी ना बहुत सारी एनजीओज एक दूसरे की फंडिंग कर रही हैं। वो रिस्क एफसीआई डिपार्टमेंट को भी मालूम है, तो वो आपके सब रेंट पेमेंट्स को इस हिसाब से भी देखेंगे। तो इसलिए थोड़ा इसमें कॉशन लेके चलना चाहिए। और अगर आपको लगता है कि बिल्कुल जेन्युइन केस है और ये एफसीआरए से ही पे करना है तो करिए। अगर आपको वहाँ उसमें थोड़ा आर्म्स लेंथ में डाउट लगता है या कोई और, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से आपका एसोसिएटेड एंटिटी है तो वहाँ आर्म्स लेंथ प्रूव करना थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है। अब अगर इंडिपेंडेंट एंटिटी है, वो औरों को भी दे रखा है। अब फॉर एग्जांपल जैसे आपका वो ये चौहान सेंटर है, यू नो, उसमें इतने सारे लोगों को दे रखा है, उनको आप दे रहे हैं तो कोई इशू नहीं है। पर अगर आपने अपने किसी एसोसिएट को दे दिया तो रिस्क होगा। आपकी ग्रांटी है, कोई पास्ट में ग्रांटी रहा, उसको आप रेंट दे रहे हैं तो इशू हो जाएगा, हो सकता है।
To be better to be on the side of caution.
हाँ, देखिए एफसीआई डिपार्टमेंट जितना आप बच के चलेंगे ना उतना ही आपके लिए अच्छा रहेगा।
ओके, थैंक्स संजय, थैंक्स।
आदित्य,
प्रवीण कुमार जी,
इनका म्यूट अनम्यूट नहीं हो रहा था।
प्रवीण कुमार जी,
मुझे लगता है प्रवीण कुमार जी है नहीं अभी, तो शिशिर उपाध्याय जी को कर दीजिए फिर।
शिशिर जी।
हेलो।
हाँ शिशिर जी बोलिए।
नमस्कार सर।
नमस्ते जी।
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन वही है जो प्रदीप अग्रवाल जी पूछ रहे थे आपसे, एफसीआरए रिलेटेड 20-80 का रेशियो सर। सर सपोज कीजिए अगर हम 20% वाला रेशियो अगर मीट आउट नहीं कर रहे, उससे एक्सीड कर रहा है हमारा एक्सपेंस, तो सर इसके लिए कुछ पेनल्टी है, और है तो कितना अमाउंट?
पेनल्टी है ना, 5% है शायद ऑन द एक्सेस।
सर 5% ऑफ
एक्सेस नहीं ऑफ द एक्सेस ओवर 20%।
अच्छा
हाँ, एक पेनल्टी और है।
क्या चीज सर?
वो पेनल्टी है नॉन रिन्यूअल और कैंसिलेशन।
सर वो तो नहीं तो
पर देखिए जो पेनल्टी है ना वो भी आप बार बार नहीं लगवा सकते
जी।
इसलिए आप सोचें किसी के ब्राइट माइंड में आइडिया आया हो यूरोप में या यूएस में कि पेनल्टी तो 5% ही है, 5% एडमिन में देके कर लेंगे काम, तो वो चलेगा नहीं, बिकॉज एफसीआई डिपार्टमेंट का बहुत वाइड स्कोप है, पर्सपेक्टिव है। तो आप कोशिश करें। आपने अपेंडिक्स 9 देखा है एफसीआई हैंडबुक का?
नहीं सर, नहीं देखा।
तो वो तो आपको देखना चाहिए। अपेंडिक्स 9 जो है ना एफसीआई हैंडबुक का, उसको बहुत डिटेल में बनाया गया है और बड़े अच्छे तरीके से एक्सप्लेन किया है कि आप जैसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को कैसे वो 20% की लिमिट आप मीट कर सकते हैं। अब अगर आप उसको नहीं देखेंगे तो फिर वो फिर आपके लिए फिर 2-3 साल बाद कभी ऑडिट हो गया ना तो बहुत परेशान करेगा।
जी ठीक है सर, थैंक यू सर।
क्षितिजा गोसावी। ये क्वेश्चन पूछें क्षितिजा जी।
इन द मीनवाइल प्रवीण कुमार जी अनम्यूट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं तो चैट बॉक्स में अपना क्वेश्चन डाल दीजिए प्लीज। क्षितिजा आपका क्वेश्चन है कोई?
You can ask your question now.
क्षितिजा गोसावी जी, let's move on then. सुदीप
गोयल जी।
हाँ सर, मुझे लिंक आपने दिया था सर एफसीआरए हैंडबुक में हम लोग ऑर्डर करना चाह रहे थे, लेकिन उसके अंदर में सर ऑप्शन आपका स्ट्राइप मतलब क्रेडिट कार्ड का ही ऑप्शन दे रहा है खाली। क्रेडिट कार्ड हमारे पास में है नहीं सर, तो कैसे
आप वहां से कर लीजिए। बैंक पेमेंट भी कर सकते हैं।
नहीं सर, इसमें ऑप्शन दिखा नहीं रहा है सर, खाली पेमेंट कार्ड ऑप्शन।
ओके, तो अमेजोन से कर लीजिए।
अमेजोन से कर सकते हैं?
जी अमेजोन पे वो एफसीआरए हैंडबुक 2021 सर्च करेंगे तो मिल जाएगा।
ओके, थैंक्स।
अरुण जिंदल जी।
सर
जी
सर, मैं सिर्फ एक छोटा सा जानकारी करना चाहता है। FCRA में कहीं ये कोई क्लॉज है क्या, अगर आपका 0 इनकम है उस साल में, कोई खर्चा नहीं है, या इनकम 10,000 या 20,000 कोई अमाउंट उससे नीचे है, तो आपको FCRA में ऑडिट रिपोर्ट नहीं पेश करना पड़ेगा?
नील पे है। अगर आपका इनकम एक्सपेंडिचर नील है ना, तो फिर आपको वो नहीं करना पड़ेगा, आपको ऑडिट रिपोर्ट नहीं करनी पड़ेगी, अकाउंट्स फाइल करने पड़ेंगे।
अच्छा, 0 है तो भी 0 है तो ऑडिट रिपोर्ट नहीं डालनी है।
हाँ, बस ऑडिटेड अकाउंट्स नहीं डालने पड़ेंगे। CA का सर्टिफिकेट नहीं चाहिए।
CA का सर्टिफिकेट नहीं चाहिए, बट उसके ऑडिटेड अकाउंट चाहिए 0।
मतलब ऑडिटेड नहीं, अनऑडिटेड अकाउंट डाल सकते हैं अगर 0 इनकम 0 एक्सपेंडिचर है।
ओके, तो हमारे ऑफिस का अकाउंट अपना डाल सकते हैं। हाँ, 0 है तो 0 एक्सपेंडिचर है या 0 इनकम है?
दोनों में ख्याल से
दोनों 0।
एक बार FCRA हैंडबुक में उसको रिकन्फर्म कर लीजिएगा, मैं भी भूल गया हूँ, पर मेरे ख्याल से क्योंकि नील अकाउंट्स पे कहता है कि नील अकाउंट्स पे क्या है।
राइट, ठीक है, तो उसी का जानकारी का थैंक यू।
प्रवीण कुमार जी। प्रवीण कुमार जी। क्षितिजा जी।
प्रवीण कुमार जी का तो नहीं हो रहा है, उनका हाथ लोअर कर देंगे। अरे पल्लवी चमन, आजाद फाउंडेशन। अच्छा, हाँ,
क्षितिजा जी प्लीज आस्क योर क्वेश्चन।
उनका मुझे लगता है साउंड का प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है क्या? क्षितिजा जी, अगर आपका साउंड नहीं आ रहा है तो आप प्लीज टाइप कर दीजिए अपना क्वेश्चन और वी विल रिस्पॉन्ड टू दैट। पल्लवी चमन जी।
हेलो सर, गुड इवनिंग
जी।
पल्लवी बोल रही हूँ आजाद फाउंडेशन से।
जी बोलिए
सर। एक क्वेश्चन है कि अगर डोनर डायरेक्ट सपोर्ट करता है एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कॉस्ट सैलरी के लिए
जी, तो
क्या वो प्रोग्राम कॉस्ट के अंदर रिपोर्टिंग होगी या तब भी वो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कॉस्ट के अंदर ही कैलकुलेशन होगी?
जी देखिए, यही तो मैं
स्पेसिफिक एलोकेशन लाइक अगर मेरा 20% टाइम गोज टू प्रोजेक्ट and donor are happy to support that cost, if that cost belongs to program or still it is administrative cost?
देखिए
मैं फाइनेंस पर्सन हूँ।
जी मैं जानता हूँ। तो इसमें देखिए क्या है, इशू ये डोनर की हैप्पीनेस का नहीं है। डोनर तो FCRA का तो यही प्रॉब्लम है ना, डोनर तो को बहुत खुश रहते हैं FCRA देके और FCRA वाले दुखी होते हैं बेचारे। तो डोनर का कंसेंट की बात नहीं है। 20% एडमिन पे कैप लगा है, तो चाहे वो प्रोग्राम कह रहे हो चाहे कुछ भी कह रहे हो, आपको अपेंडिक्स 9 के हिसाब से जाना है। तो FCRA इसमें कैलकुलेशन का रूल 5 है। रूल 5 को हमने अनपैक किया है अपेंडिक्स 9 में, डिपेंडिंग ऑन टाइप ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। अब आज़ाद फाउंडेशन अगर वेलफेयर ओरिएंटेड है तो वो जितना भी प्रोग्राम स्टाफ की सैलरी है वो उसको एडमिन में मतलब प्रोग्राम में ले जा सकती है, रादर एडमिन में रिपोर्ट नहीं करना है। अगर आप राइट्स बेस्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है तो आपको ये जो है इसका जितना भी स्टाफ का सैलरी, चाहे वो प्रोग्राम का हो नॉन प्रोग्राम हो, सारा का सारा एडमिन में जाएगा। ये बेसिक
आजाद वेलफेयर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है तो प्रोग्रामेटिक तो जाता है सर। ये एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव जो टीम है जिसकी बात हम करते हैं, जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव।
नहीं मैम, ये पल्लवी जी, इसको आपको एक बार अपने प्रोग्राम टीम से पूछना पड़ेगा। इसको मैं इसलिए बार बार आपको कह रहा हूँ, अपेंडिक्स 9 को देखिए, उसमें हमने एक्सप्लेन किया है राइट्स बेस्ड कौन है, वेलफेयर कौन है। आज़ाद फाउंडेशन जहाँ तक मेरी जानकारी है वो थोड़ा सा कस्प पे है, तो आपको इसको केयरफुली सोचना पड़ेगा कि आपका वेलफेयर ओरिएंटेड, अपनी वेबसाइट देखिए किस तरह का काम आप कर रहे हैं। आप अगर फॉर एग्जांपल इफ़ यू आर वर्किंग ऑन जेंडर, तो फिर आपका होगा कि आप शायद वेलफेयर नहीं है। अगर आप पॉलिसी में इंटरवेंशन करना चाहते हैं तो आपको वेलफेयर में नहीं माना जाएगा। वेलफेयर का मेन मतलब ये है कि जो लोग जैसे लोगों को राशन पानी तरह तरह की सहूलियतें सुविधाएं दिलवा रहे हैं, दे रहे हैं रादर, वो अगर आप गवर्नमेंट से उनको उनका हक दिलवा रहे हैं या गवर्नमेंट से उनको स्कीम्स दिलवा रहे हैं तो भी वो राइट्स बेस्ड में चला जाता है। तो इस एंगल से आप थोड़ा अपना प्रोग्राम को इवैल्यूएट करें और अपेंडिक्स 9 के हिसाब से देख के चलें कि आपका एडमिन में आएगा कि नहीं। और कोई प्रॉब्लम हो तो आप query@accountant.net पे ईमेल भेज दीजिएगा। ठीक है,
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
नेक्स्ट
Dan Andrew. Dan, you can ask your question.
Dan, we can't hear you. Dan, we can't hear you. Check your mic, please.
You can also type your question in the chat box and I'll put it up.
जी, ये अजहर अली वापस आ गए, इनका मैंने गलती से हाथ नीचे कर दिया था। अजहर बोलिए, अपना माइक अनम्यूट कर लीजिए। अजहर अली बोलिए।
सर हाँ सर, थैंक यू। सर एक छोटा सा सवाल ये था कि रिन्यूअल के टाइम में इम्प्लीमेंटिंग अकाउंट जो थी हमारी वो एक थी, उसको मैंने 2 एंट्री मारा था, 2 प्रोजेक्ट थे उस समय। तो
इम्प्लीमेंटिंग अकाउंट मतलब
जिसमें प्रोजेक्ट के नाम से अकाउंट था वो।
अच्छा, तो यूटिलाइजेशन अकाउंट।
जी सर, यूटिलाइजेशन अकाउंट। तो उनको क्लोज करने के लिए हमें क्या प्रोसेस करने पड़ेंगे?
देखिए, इसमें क्लोज करने की 2 प्रोसेस हैं। एक तो आपको बैंक के साथ जाके क्लोज करना है
जी,
ठीक है। दूसरा प्रोसेस जो है वो ये कि आपको FCRA में रिपोर्ट करना। तो FCRA में रिपोर्ट करने की कोई फैसिलिटी नहीं है।
अच्छा,
तो इसलिए आपको सिर्फ जो आप वहां पे कर पाएंगे वही होगा। मतलब आप अपने तरफ से अपने एंड पे उसको क्लोज कर देंगे और आपकी बुक्स में वो FCRA रिकॉर्ड्स में वो दिखता रहेगा यूटिलाइजेशन अकाउंट। इतनी ही बात है बस।
तो मैं सर उसका यूज तो फिर कर नहीं पाऊंगा।
हाँ, तो आप क्यों करना चाहते हैं यूज? उसको बंद करके खत्म करें
के लिए, लोकल अकाउंट, लोकल के लिए।
नहीं, वो मत करिए आप, क्योंकि आप इंटीमेट तो कर नहीं पा रहे हैं, तो आप उसको अपने लोकल में मत यूज करिए।
ओके सर,
ठीक है जी। ओके, संजय राय, संजय जी, एम ट्रस्ट, संजय राय।
संजय जी अनम्यूट कर सकते हैं आप अपने आप को। ओके, अन्नपूरानी जी।
Hello.
जी.
Good evening, sir.
जी.
We have done a renewal during first week of September, sir.
You have filed your renewal.
Yes, we have filed.
Right.
One of the office bearers' phone number got changed now.
जी.
So what will be the status with IB, sir, for our application?
I see. When did you file your application?
First week of September.
Okay, and has the IBA verification taken place?
Yes, sir. It has been done with 4 of our members. We had 7 members.
And this one has not been done?
No, for this member, it has not been done.
And when did this happen? When did the verification happen?
Maybe from last month, mid-January.
Okay. So I think that will be a problem, but then they will probably call you up and ask for the fresh number.
Okay, sir. Because that is our president's number. She's the chief functionary.
It's not good, no, ma'am. President should not change their number.
No, I think she had some problems. Now only during this Zoom meeting only, I was just having that in mind. Okay. Anyway, they'll ask for her number and
hopefully.
Okay.
See, another option is that if she just lost her phone. And then she can ask for the same number to be revived by the service provider.
Okay, sir.
That's a technical solution, but because IB and FCRA is very unpredictable, so the easiest we can make it for them, the better it is for everyone.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sanjay Rai ji, AIM Trust.
ओके, नहीं, उनका नहीं उठ रहा है। ये नीलम बसरा जी।
हेलो सर।
जी
नमस्कार
जी।
हाँ, मैं जानना चाह रही थी कि जैसे हम लोग का ये दिल्ली में FCRA अकाउंट खुला हुआ है
जी,
और लोकल में पहले हम लोग लोकल में खोले थे, तो क्या दिल्ली में जो FCRA अकाउंट है वहाँ मान लिया जो पैसा आता है उसको लोकल FCRA बैंक में मंगा के प्रोग्राम में खर्चा कर सकते हैं?
देखिए, लोकल वर्ड बड़ा खतरनाक है। आपका लोकल का मतलब आपके झारखंड में?
जी
हाँ, तो वहाँ दिल्ली वाले SBI अकाउंट से आप अपने FCRA का जो आपका अकाउंट झारखंड में है
जी
उसमें आप मंगा सकते हैं और वहां से यूज कर सकते हैं। ठीक है?
अच्छा, हाँ, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है ना?
नहीं नहीं, उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम।
हाँ, और सर मैं जानना चाहती थी, जैसे कि अभी FCRA रिन्यूअल के लिए हम लोग अप्लाई किए हैं और मतलब जांच टीम भी आई थी, जांच करके गई है, तो हम जानना चाह रहे हैं कितना दिन में वो वेरिफिकेशन करके।
आपने अप्लाई कब किया था?
जुलाई में।
जुलाई में? तो मुझे लगता है कि आपका जून जुलाई तक आपका चांस है होने का। ठीक।
जांच टीम भी जांच करके चली गई है, रिपोर्ट भी हमको
हाँ,
लगता
वो लंबी प्रोसेस है ना मैम, बहुत सारे ज्यादा उनके पास एप्लीकेशन है, प्रोसेस कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है और स्टाफ कम है, तो इसलिए प्रॉब्लम।
ठीक है, थैंक यू।
अच्छा, ये उस्मान भाई के क्वेश्चन लेके फिर बंद करते हैं।
उस्मान भाई, उस्मान भाई अनम्यूट कर लें अपने आप को।
हाँ उस्मान भाई बोलिए। जो लोग अनम्यूट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं वो चैट बॉक्स में क्वेश्चन डाल सकते हैं, आदित्य जी मेरे को बता देंगे वो क्वेश्चन। नहीं हो रहा उस्मान जी का, आवाज नहीं आ रही है।
आभा शर्मा जी।
आभा शर्मा जी। आदित्य, तब तक हम लोग चैट बॉक्स से क्वेश्चंस ले लें प्लीज।
जी सनी जी, चैट बॉक्स के सारे क्वेश्चंस हो चुके
नहीं,
हैं।
अभी इसमें उस्मान जी ने डाला है।
आई कैन नॉट सी दैट क्वेश्चन।
अच्छा, ये मेरे को दिया है डायरेक्ट मैसेज। उस्मान जी का क्वेश्चन है, व्हाट आर द चेकलिस्ट फॉर FCRA ऑडिट फ्रॉम FCI डिपार्टमेंट। ये तो बहुत सीक्रेट क्वेश्चन है उस्मान भाई, ये कैसे पता चलेगा? बट जनरली हम लोगों ने FCRA की हैंडबुक में थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन किया है, आपके पास तो कॉपी है, आप एक बार उसको चेक कर लीजिए किस तरह के क्वेश्चंस हैं। बेसिकली FCRA ऑडिट में काफ़ी डिटेल में देखते हैं, आपका रिकॉर्ड्स देखते हैं, सारा आपने डोनेशन पर्पस के लिए यूज़ किया है कि नहीं, रॉन्ग बैंक अकाउंट में यूज़ किया है, फिक्सड रजिस्टर देखते हैं और आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट रिकॉर्ड देखते हैं। सारा चीज़ आपके संस्था के नाम पे है। अगर कोई आपने मान लीजिए कोई एसेट वगैरह प्रॉपर्टी या व्हीकल को उसको किसी संस्था के व्यक्ति के नाम में रखा है, पर्सनल नाम में रखा है, ऐसा कुछ इशू है तो वो एक बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम हो जाता है। तो इसमें ये सब चीज़ें देखते हैं, 5-6 दिन प्रोसेस चलता है, काफ़ी डिटेल में चलता है। देखिए, आप लोग मुझे डायरेक्ट मैसेज भेज रहे हैं, प्लीज़ आप ग्रुप में पोस्ट कर दीजिए या आदित्य जी को पोस्ट कर दीजिए। आई थिंक बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन मेरे को डायरेक्टली आ गए हैं। मैं पढ़ देता हूँ। एक प्रवीण भारद्वाज जी का क्वेश्चन है, इज GST एग्जेम्प्टेड इन 12A? तो मुझे क्वेश्चन नहीं समझ में आया, बट शायद उनका मतलब कहने का है कि 12A वाली एंटिटीज GST पे कर सकती हैं कि नहीं। तो हाँ, कर सकती हैं, पर GST रजिस्ट्रेशन अगर आप करा रहे हैं तो आपका रिस्क बनता है कि यू माइट बी ट्रीटेड एज एन एंटिटी हैविंग कमर्शियल एक्टिविटीज, उससे आपको एक प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है।
जी बॉस्को डिसूजा जी से क्वेश्चन है।
हाँ बोलिए।
They're saying that their NGO has been denied FCRA renewal. They're asking when can they apply for FCRA registration again as the portal is currently disabled.
See, as far as I know, you can apply for FCRA registration immediately, but best would be that if you first try for revision under Section 32. That is sometimes giving relief. So I'm not sure why the portal is because there is no time limit for reapplying in case of non-renewal. You can apply immediately. Okay.
Yeah, another
maybe
question
you are facing a problem that your login ID is not working. So maybe you will have to create a new login ID and password. Because I think what you might be meaning is that your old ID you are not able to use any longer for FCRA activities.
A question from Mini Goyal. They are saying that they have submitted their FCRA renewal application, and the fees has also been paid, but the portal is showing that the fees is still pending and the money has been deducted from the bank account.
देखिए इसमें समटाइम्स व्हाट हैपेंस मिनी जी इसकी ये ट्रांजैक्शंस जो हैं वो अटक जाते हैं, तो आई थिंक बेस्ट वुड बी दैट अगर आप कर सकें तो आप दोबारा फीस पे कर दीजिए। 5,000 रुपये का मामला है, कोई बड़ा इशू नहीं है। और बाकी आप अपने बैंक से फॉलो अप करना पड़ेगा, अदरवाइज आप प्रूफ उनसे बैंक से लीजिए कि ये क्या है, और उसको प्रूफ को आप फिर FCI डिपार्टमेंट को भेजना पड़ेगा जिससे वो उसको फॉलो अप कर सके। कई बार हमारे साथ भी होता है, MCA वगैरह के साथ ये होता है कि फीस जो होती है कहीं बीच में अटक जाती है।
And question from Sanjay Rai, AIM Trust. They're saying that the utilization bank account does not have internet banking facility. Can they deposit TDS from the individual account?
See, you can what you can do is that you can fill up the TDS challan and go to the bank and ask the bank to make that payment on your behalf. So there will be a delay of 1 day, but on that basis they will make the payment and the challan can be sorted out.
The second part of this question is, if trustees work as project staff, can they take the salary as per the education and time given to the project?
Sorry?
They're saying that if trustees are working as project staff, can they take salary as per their education and the time given to the project?
ये तो थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूज हो गया मैं।
Saying if trustees are working as a project staff, can they take salary commensurate to the education and the time devoted to the project?
Somehow I am gone blank. What exactly is meant by this?
इसमें वही है कि अगर ट्रस्टी को संस्था पैसे दे रही है तो संजय जी ने पहले भी जवाब दिया इस चीज का कि वो एक तो देखना पड़ेगा कितना मिल रहा है, दूसरा संजय जी एक चीज और देखने में आई है बीच में कि अगर बोर्ड का रेजोल्यूशन है वो भी बहुत जरूरी है।
हाँ बिल्कुल सही आपने कहा, आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा,
बहुत जरूरी है बोर्ड का रेजोल्यूशन भी,
बोर्ड अप्रूव्ड होना चाहिए जी। बट आई थिंक इनका कुछ ये है कि ये शायद सैलरी को मल्टीपल प्रोजेक्ट्स में एलोकेट कर रहे हैं, देखिए जो एलोकेट करने का है वो इंटरनल इशू है, और उसमें डोनर को अगर प्रॉब्लम नहीं है तो आपको प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बट ये ध्यान रखना है कि वो आपको उसका बाकी जो कंप्लायंस है जैसे FCRA नॉन FCRA वो सेपरेट रहे। आपने टोटल सैलरी एक अकाउंट से दे दी और फिर उसको इस एलोकेट करने लगे तो प्रॉब्लम होगी। दूसरी बात ये कि जो डोनर है, मान लीजिए हम अगर डोनर ऑडिट की तरफ से आपके यहाँ आते हैं तो वी माइट आस्क सर्टेन क्वेश्चंस, किस बेसिस पे आप एलोकेट करते हैं, कैसे करते हैं, बिकॉज क्वाइट ऑफन एनजीओज में क्या होता है कि वो जो डोनर का बजट होता है उतना ही वो एलोकेट कर देते हैं और कहते हैं यही प्रोपोर्शन उसमें हो रहा है। तो अगर आप ये कहेंगे हम प्रोपोर्शनेट इन द बेसिस ऑफ वर्क डन हम कर रहे हैं तो फिर वी विल आस्क यू फॉर क्या वर्कशीट्स हैं, किस बेसिस पे आप कैलकुलेट करते हैं। ऑडिटर्स का तो यही काम होता है ना, किसी तरह से परेशान करना है एनजीओज को, तो इसलिए ये ध्यान रखने की बात है। अच्छा आदित्य, आई वांट टू रीड आउट सम क्वेश्चंस व्हिच आर देयर, समवन हैड सेंट मी डायरेक्ट मैसेज, तो कैन यू हैंग ऑन फॉर अ मिनट?
Sure.
मिनी गोयल जी का तो हो गया। अच्छा ये सारे ही आई थिंक वहाँ में इनबॉक्स में पोस्ट कर दिए हैं, तो आई थिंक बड़ा अच्छा हो गया।
क्वेश्चन रह गया है
किनका?
आभा जी का। She is saying that their organization is 3 years old and they want to apply for FCRA registration and they want to know what is the procedure for applying for FCRA registration.
ये मैम इसी काम के लिए ना मैंने बहुत दिन बैठ के FCRA की हैंडबुक लिखी थी तो कई बार 2-3 बार रिवाइज करी, तो आइडियली तो आपको उसमें पूरा डिटेल में देखना होगा, बट ब्रीफली मैं बता सकता हूँ आपको कि अगर आपकी इनकम आई थिंक 15 लाख रुपया, मतलब 15 लाख से ज़्यादा का आपने प्रोग्राम एक्सपेंडिचर किया है ऑन द टाइप ऑफ एक्टिविटीज़ फॉर विच यू आर सीकिंग रजिस्ट्रेशन, तो आप एलिजिबल हैं। और उसके अलावा उसमें बहुत सारे नट्स एंड बोल्ट्स हैं, वो आपको FCRA हैंडबुक में से एक बार देखना पड़ेगा। उसके बाद भी कोई अगर आपका स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन रहता है तो वो आप सर्टनली query@accountant.net पे भेज सकते हैं, ठीक है। सो आदित्य, वी आर इन द वेरी फॉर्चुनेट सिचुएशन, सारे हो गए। एक बार कपिल सांगवान अगर हो तो उनसे पूछ लूं, कहीं उनके मन में कोई शक ना रह जाए। कपिल जी चले गए हैं, थैंक गॉड। आप तो बस आपका तो हर्षी, डू यू वांट टू क्लोज?
नहीं, मैं आपका ये पेशेंस को देख के आई रियली सैल्यूट यू संजय।
नहीं अरे क्या बात करते हैं, तो सब लोग इतना बेचारा टाइम लेके लोग बैठते हैं, तो
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग सर, आई रियली सैल्यूट यू एंड यू आर एन एसेट फॉर द सेक्टर के। क्या होता है संजय जी, हमने कई मीटिंग्स की हैं
जी, और
उसमें देखने आया है कि जो एफसीआरए बीच में आता ही है हमेशा
जी,
लेकिन मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम जो रिसोर्स पर्सन होते हैं ना डराते हैं। एफसीआरए डराने की चीज बन गई है कि रिसोर्स पर्सन भी डराते हैं, जो सीए भी डराते हैं, और डरा के आदमी, मतलब कई बार ऐसा होता है कि एफसीआरए की कन्वर्सेशन के बाद लोग डिप्रेशन में चले जाते हैं। बट आई थिंक द वे यू एक्सप्लेन is really very commendable and I really appreciate always. और thank you very much sir, and I also like to thanks all the participants कि उन्होंने क्वेश्चन पूछे, और ये एक तरीके से मेरे को लगता है इवेंचुअली मास्टर क्लास की तरह ये आपका सेशन हो गया। मतलब जो कंटेंट से बाहर, जो कहते हैं ना क्वेश्चन पेपर के बाहर के भी क्वेश्चन आ गए आपको, सिलेबस के बाहर के भी। सो थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू वेरी मच।